Am I audible? Last? Yeah. We'll start in a minute. Let's start. Hello and good evening. Myself, Mahadev Padoe. It is an absolute honor for Sevankur Bharat to welcome you all here for this special evening. Sevankur Bharat is deeply committed to nurture socially conscious healthcare leaders by instilling core values of unconditional love, teamwork, striving for excellence, and service oriented attitude. Today, we have the honor of engaging with a leader who has exemplified these very values throughout his remarkable journey, Dr. R. Balasubramaniam. Thank you, sir, for such a gracious presence. Now I request Dr. R. Balu, sir, to come upon the stage and take the seat. Along with him, I request Dr. Nitin Gadewad and Dr. Vishal Dhakre, sir, as well. With great honor and anticipation, I would like to give a detailed introduction about our guest, Dr. R. Balasubramaniam. Dr. Ramaswamy Balasubramaniam, affectionately known as Balu, is a distinguished development scholar, author, public policy advocate, and leadership trainer. He is renowned for his pioneering work with rural and tribal communities in the Sargur and Hegad-Devankote taluks of Mysore, Karnataka. At the age of 19, he founded the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, globally known as the SVYM, a development organization based in Sargur. With over 26 years of dedicated service in development work, Dr. Balu later pursued advanced degrees in leadership, organizational development, and public policy. He served as the Frank H.T. Rhodes Professor at Cornell University from 2012 to 2014 and continues to hold academic positions at Cornell and other esteemed institutions. His globally acclaimed books, Voices from the Grassroots and I, the Citizen, compile narratives and reflections that showcase his expertise in development. Additionally, he is the founder of Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement, a public policy think tank located in Mysuru. Currently, Dr. Balu serves as a full-time member HR in the Capacity Building Commission of Government of India, and he is also a chairperson of Social Stock Exchange Advisory Committee of Securities and Exchange Board of India. Inspired by the teachings of Swami Vivekananda, he is on a mission to build a resurgent India by fostering leadership among the nation's youth. In his latest work, Power Within, the leadership legacy of Narendra Modi, Dr. Balu examines the Prime Minister's leadership journey, interpreting it through both Western and Indic lenses. He provides a comprehensive roadmap for those who aspire to a life of public service, drawing upon Modi's 50-year journey in public life as an exemplar. I can truly say we are incredibly fortunate to have him with us this evening. His dedication to building a resurgent India and inspiring leadership, especially among the youth, is nothing short of inspiring. Dr. Balu, we are so lucky to have you here to share your insights and wisdom with us. I would now like to request Mr. Ajay Kunte, a third-year MBBS student from GMC Sambhajinagar, to kindly felicitate Dr. R. Balu with a small token of love. I am glad to mention that this is the first annual report Sevankur Bharat for 2023 and 24. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Vishal Dhakre. Dr. Vishal Dhakre is a leading physician and intensivist practicing here in Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar. For last 15 years, he has been associated with Sevankur Bharat since his undergraduate and now holds the responsibility as Sevankur Bharat Palak. As many of you are already familiar with Sevankur Bharat and its mission, it is important to reflect on how we aim to foster an environment where healthcare leaders are not only skilled professionals but also compassionate individuals dedicated to serving the society. To share more about Sevankur Bharat and its vision, I would like to invite Dr. Nitin Gadewad. Dr. Nitin is a chest physician from Jalna. He joined Sevankur Bharat movement as a student 2 decades ago and today leads it as All India Sanyojak. Besides being successful medical practitioner, Dr. Nitin is an accomplished Indologist with mastery over ancient sculptures and temples. Currently, he is practicing consultant in Jalna and leading Sevankur Bharat as All India coordinator. Dr. Nitin.
आप सभी लोग कुछ एक नए ऑडियंस को इनवाइट करेंगे। हम पिछले 30 सालों से मेडिकल कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट्स में काम करते हैं, तो हमको मेडिकल कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट्स को इनवाइट करने का एक एक्सपर्टीज़ है। तो हमको पता है मेडिकल कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट्स को यहाँ अगर बुलाना है कैसे बुलाना है, लेकिन समाज में एक अलग स्तर में काम करने वाले, अलग सेक्टर में काम करने वाले लोगों को इन्वाइट करने का हमारा ये फर्स्ट अनुभव था। और उस इनविटेशन को स्वीकार करते हुए आप इतनी संख्या में यहाँ पर उपस्थित रहे, इसके लिए सबसे पहले सेवांकुर भारत की ओर से मैं आप सबका हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। 1989 में 7 युवा डॉक्टर्स ने मिलकर जब वो पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन करके बाहर निकले तो उन्होंने तय किया कि हम अपने लिए कुछ नहीं करेंगे, प्राइवेट प्रैक्टिस अपने लिए नहीं करेंगे, समाज की आवश्यकताओं के आधार पर काम करेंगे। और एक 10 बेड का एक छोटा सा हॉस्पिटल शुरू हुआ जिसका नाम डॉक्टर हेडगेवार हॉस्पिटल था। उसका आज का रूप आप सब लोग अनुभव करते हैं। वो हॉस्पिटल 1989 में शुरू हुआ, आज उसका एक जर्नी आप अनुभव करते हैं। एक मेडिकल कॉलेज की शुरुआत तक वो हॉस्पिटल बढ़ा। वर्टिकल ग्रोथ तो हॉस्पिटल की हुई, उसके साथ साथ हॉरिजॉन्टल ग्रोथ भी हुई। समाज की आवश्यकताओं के अनुसार जब ध्यान में आया कि झुग्गी झोपड़ियों जो समाज अपना जो सेवा बस्ती जिसको कहते हैं, स्लम्स जिसको कहते हैं, उस स्लम्स में भी जाने की आवश्यकता है। 1991 के आसपास यहाँ के डॉक्टर स्लम्स में गए। माध्यम तो स्वाभाविक रूप से आरोग्य का था, हेल्थ को माध्यम बना करके स्लम्स में गए। ध्यान में आया कि सिर्फ आरोग्य की समस्या नहीं है, समस्या बहुत सारी है, एजुकेशन के है, संस्कारों की समस्या है, एडिक्शन के इश्यूज़ है। तो ध्यान में आया कि वहाँ जाकर काम करना पड़ेगा। तो स्लम्स में काम शुरू हुआ। स्लम के साथ साथ गांव देहातों में भी काम शुरू हुआ। तो आज लगभग 950 से ज़्यादा गाँवों में अपने संस्था के माध्यम से सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का काम चलता है। वैसे स्लम्स में भी अब 45 से ज़्यादा अलग अलग डिफरेंट प्रोजेक्ट के माध्यम से काम चलता है। लेकिन एक विशेषता ये इस हॉस्पिटल के और उस हॉस्पिटल का काम करने वाले डॉक्टर्स की ये रही कि एक सपना उन्होंने 1989 में देखा और उनके समय में ही वो सपना ऑलमोस्ट पूरा भी हो गया। लेकिन उनको ऐसा लगा हमारी संस्था कितनी भी बड़ी बन जाए, सारे समाज की आवश्यकता कभी पूरी नहीं कर सकती। और अगर समाज में हेल्थ सेक्टर में अगर अच्छा कुछ होना है तो बेसिक रिक्वायरमेंट है कि हर डॉक्टर के मन में ये समाज मेरा अपना है, ये भाव हमेशा रहना पड़ेगा। और उस समाज के प्रति मेरा कुछ उत्तरदायित्व है, मेरी कुछ ड्यूटीज़ है, वो भाव हर व्यक्ति के, हर डॉक्टर के मन में रहना पड़ेगा। और अगर वो कर्तव्य मुझे निभाना है तो उसके लिए कुछ आवश्यक गुण भी मुझ में होने ज़रूरी है। स्वाभाविक रूप से हम अनुभव करते हैं कि एकेडमिक्स में ये सारी बातों के लिए कोई जगह आज के समय में नहीं है। तो 1997 में कुछ डॉक्टर्स ने मिलकर, हेडगेवार हॉस्पिटल के डॉक्टर्स ने मिलकर तय किया कि हमारे पास ये समस्या है, ये समस्या हम नए जनरेशन के पास लेकर के जाएंगे। हमने ऐसा नहीं कहा कि ये रेडीमेड कुछ आंसर हमारे हाथ में है, हमने ही करके दिखाया है। हमने कहा कि एक समस्या हमारे ध्यान में आई है, वो युवा के सामने यह प्रश्न रखेंगे। 1997 में अनौपचारिक रूप से यहाँ के मेडिकल कॉलेज के हॉस्टल में जाना शुरू हुआ। धीरे धीरे विद्यार्थियों में जाते रहे, तो स्वाभाविक रूप से जितना ज़्यादा जाते हैं तो अपने आप दोस्ती बनती है। विद्यार्थियों के साथ जाते जाते दोस्ती बनी, तो दोस्ती में से छोटे छोटे उपक्रम बनने लगे। कभी कोई अच्छा प्रकल्प देखना हो, कुछ अच्छे व्यक्ति से मिलना हो, ऐसा करते करते 2006 तक उसको कोई नाम नहीं था। लेकिन ये अनुभव आया कि धीरे धीरे ये काम बढ़ता गया। तो 6-7 सालों में जिन विद्यार्थियों को 1997 में संपर्क किया, उनके भी मन में ऐसा आया कि हमने भी हमारे जीवन में कुछ ना कुछ समाज के लिए करना चाहिए। और कुछ लोगों ने मिलकर नासिक में इसी प्रकार का एक श्री गुरुजी हॉस्पिटल शुरू किया। और फिर वो काम आगे बढ़ता गया। तो धीरे धीरे वो काम, उसको नाम 2006 में सेवांकुर नाम रखा, 2016 में उसको सेवांकुर भारत रखा। वो एक्टिविटी बढ़ते बढ़ते आज समाज लगभग 12,000 से ज़्यादा मेडिकल स्टूडेंट अलग अलग माध्यम से इस एक्टिविटी के साथ जुड़े हैं। महाराष्ट्र के लगभग 200 से 50 मेडिकल कॉलेज में अपना संपर्क है। धीरे धीरे महाराष्ट्र के बाहर भी एक्टिविटी गई, तो आज मध्य प्रदेश और छत्तीसगढ़ में धीरे धीरे इस एक्टिविटी का काम शुरू हो गया। तो स्वाभाविक ये व्यक्ति निर्माण का काम है, व्यक्ति के मन में संस्कार देने का काम है, तो इसकी गति भी उसी प्रकार से चलती है। फिर 2016 में हमने एक अनुभव किया कि हम हमेशा बोलते हैं भारत मेरा देश है, सारे भारतीय मेरे भाई बांधव है, लेकिन उनका प्रत्यक्ष हम अनुभव करते हैं क्या? ये बात सिर्फ बोलने की है या अनुभव करने की है? ये भाव हमारे मन में आया, तो हमने तय किया कि मेडिकल कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट्स को आज अपने समाज का जो आखिरी इस पे बैठे वाला जो अपना भाई है, उसका दर्शन हम हमारे मेडिकल कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट को कराएंगे। और 2016 में एक कार्यक्रम बना जिसका नाम था ड्यूरिंग वैकेशन 1 वीक फॉर नेशन। 7 दिन हम 300 मेडिकल कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट को लेकर के अपने देश के किसी ट्राइबल एरिया में जाते हैं। 7 दिन वो विद्यार्थी उन्हीं ट्राइबल बंधुओं के बीच में रहते हैं, उनके घरों में रहते हैं, वो जो खाने को देंगे वही खाते हैं, उनके लिए मेडिकल कैंप अरेंज करते हैं। हमारा अनुभव ऐसा रहा, हमें तो शुरुआत में ऐसा लगा कि ऐसा एक कार्यक्रम हमने तय किया है कि हम करेंगे, लेकिन विद्यार्थियों का रिस्पांस कैसा रहेगा। पिछले 10 सालों से हम ये कंटिन्यू कार्यक्रम कर रहे हैं। आज तक एक बार भी ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि 300 सीट्स हमने डिक्लेयर की तो कम से कम 700 से 800 विद्यार्थी हमको एप्लीकेशन करते हैं, उसमें से ही 300 हमको लेके जाने पड़ते हैं। तो एक तरफ हम अनुभव करते हैं कि समाज में युवाओं के प्रति जो भाव आज हम अनुभव करते हैं, लेकिन अगर ठीक से अगर विद्यार्थियों को, युवाओं को आह्वान किया जाए, ठीक से उनको अपील की जाए, तो युवाओं का बहुत अच्छा रिस्पांस हमको मिलता है। सक्सेस स्टोरीज तो बहुत है। आज तक 5 विद्यार्थी ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने अपने एजुकेशन के बाद 1 साल का समय अपने देश के लिए दिया और एक सेवांकुर भारत के माध्यम से कोई भी खुद के लिए काम न करते हुए साल भर सेवांकुर का काम किया। ऐसे 5 विद्यार्थी आज तक है। क्योंकि हम एक आह्वान हम ये भी करते हैं, हम सबको अनुभव है कि APJ अब्दुल कलाम जी जो अपने पूर्व राष्ट्रपति थे, उन्होंने एक आह्वान युवाओं को किया था, ड्यूरिंग एजुकेशन 1 वीक फॉर नेशन, आफ्टर एजुकेशन 1 ईयर फॉर नेशन। वही आह्वान हमने मेडिकल कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट को करते हैं। और मुझे बताते हुए गर्व है कि आज तक 5 ऐसे मेडिकल कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट हैं जिन्होंने एजुकेशन के बाद 1 साल अपना सेवांकुर के माध्यम से देश के लिए दिया। तो ये काम धीरे धीरे बढ़ रहा है। बढ़ते बढ़ते मैंने जैसे कहा कि 2022 में हम 1 वीक फॉर नेशन लेकर के स्वामी विवेकानंद यूथ मूवमेंट जो मैसूर के पास सरगुर में जो है, जिसके फाउंडर डॉक्टर बालू सर है, उनके प्रकल्प में हम गए थे। तब से लेकर के आज तक हम बालू सर को तकलीफ देते ही रहते हैं। तो स्वाभाविक रूप से जब ये कार्यक्रम हमने अनाउंस किया तो बहुत लोगों ने मुझे पूछा, बुक तो मोदी जी पे है, तो लिखा डॉक्टर बालू जी ने है, सेवांकुर तो मेडिकल स्टूडेंट में काम करता है, तो ये कॉम्बिनेशन है क्या? ये कॉम्बिनेशन इतना ही है, सेवांकुर के माध्यम से हम ऐसे हेल्थ केयर लीडर्स तैयार करना चाहते हैं जिन्होंने अपने समाज का भाव, अपन ये देश मेरा अपना है, ये समाज मेरा अपना है और उसके लिए कुछ करना मेरा उत्तरदायित्व है, ऐसा मान करके जो उसके क्वालिटीज़ है उसका उपयोग समाज के लिए उन्होंने करना चाहिए। ये भाव मन में रखकर काम करने वाला हर कोई व्यक्ति, ऐसा व्यक्ति समाज में हर मेडिकल प्रोफेशनल ऐसा बने, इसके लिए सेवांकुर भारत संकल्पित है। तो उसका जीता जागता उदाहरण डॉक्टर बालू सर है। तो एक एट द एज ऑफ 19 उन्होंने एक संस्था शुरू की, ट्राइबल एरिया में उन्होंने काम किया। आप ज़रूर एक बार जाके देखिए, आज भी वो ट्राइबल एरिया इतना डिफ़िकल्ट टेरेन है जो उस समय में क्या रहा होगा, लेकिन डेडिकेटेडली 27-28 साल वहाँ काम करने के बाद, और देश दुनिया के हार्वर्ड से स्टैनफोर्ड से लेकर अलग अलग यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में लीडरशिप के एक फैकल्टी होने तक की उनकी जर्नी इंस्पायरिंग है। अपने देश के कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग कमीशन के वो एचआर के मेंबर है और अपने देश के ब्यूरोक्रेसी को ये शब्द ठीक है कि नहीं मुझे पता नहीं, सुधारने का काम बालू सर कर रहे हैं। तो मुझे ऐसा लगा कि समाज में ऐसे हेल्थ केयर लीडर्स बने, इसके लिए सेवांकुर संकल्पित है। और आज हमने जिनको इस कार्यक्रम को इनविटेशन दिया है वो भी अपने अपने क्षेत्र में समाज को लीड ही कर रहे हैं, वो भी अपने अपने क्षेत्र के लीडर्स हैं। तो शायद कोई वेल्थ क्रिएट कर रहा होगा, कोई हेल्थ सेक्टर में काम कर रहा होगा, कोई सोसाइटी के लिए काम कर रहा होगा। तो मुझे ऐसा लगा कि हम सारे सेवांकुर के लोगों को लगा कि अगर सारे लोग ही समाज के लिए ही काम कर रहे हैं तो अलग अलग लोगों का एक्सपर्टाइज साथ में आए तो हम समाज के लिए कुछ अच्छा कर सकते हैं। आपका अपने क्षेत्र का अनुभव हमको आगे बढ़ने के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है। तो मेरा आप सभी से निवेदन है कि आप सेवांकुर भारत से जुड़े रहिए, हमको मार्गदर्शन करते रहिए। जहाँ जहाँ आवश्यक है आपका सहयोग हमारे लिए बहुत उपयोगी होगा। और एक संकल्प लेकर पूरे देश में ये सेवांकुर का काम लेकर जाने का संकल्प लेकर हम पिछले 27 सालों से काम कर रहे हैं और हम आशा करते हैं कि आपके सहयोग के साथ बहुत जल्दी ये संकल्प पूरा करेंगे। फिर एक बार आप इस कार्य हमारे निमंत्रण को स्वीकार करते हुए यहाँ तक आए, इसलिए आपको धन्यवाद देते हुए मेरे वाणी को विराम देता हूँ।
Thank you, sir. As Dr. Nitin mentioned, our distinct initiative, 1 week for nation. Let's immerse ourselves in the 7-day journey by watching a 1 week for nation video. I kindly request the guests to take their seats in the front row.
भारतात वैद्य आणि शिक्षक या दोन व्यावसायिकांना समाजात फार मान होता। वैद्यकीय सेवा आणि ज्ञानदान या त्यांच्या कामांच्या पलीकडे जाऊन अन्य क्षेत्रातही त्यांचं योगदान असायचं। याचं कारण या दोन्हींनी समाजाचा कमावलेला विश्वास। त्यांचं काम केवळ त्यांच्या उपजीविकेचं साधन नव्हतं, तर त्याहीपेक्षा अधिक काहीतरी होतं। ती होती समाजहितार्थ केलेली निस्वार्थ सेवा। मात्र कालोघात अनेक बदल होत गेले। वैद्यकीय सुविधा शहर केंद्री आणि गरिबांना न परवडणाऱ्या झाल्या। वैद्यकीय शिक्षणातून समाजभान देण्याची औपचारिक प्रक्रिया जशी कमी होत गेली, तसं डॉक्टरांचं समाज परिवर्तनातील उत्प्रेरकाचं स्थान देखील बदललं। सुसंस्कारित समाज केंद्री आरोग्य सेवेची आवश्यकता नव्यानं भासायला लागली। या पर्यायाच्या दिशेनं ज्यांनी दमदारपणे काम केलं, त्यात संभाजीनगरच्या डॉक्टर हेडगेवार रुग्णालयाचं नाव अग्रस्थानी आहे।
राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघाच्या प्रेरणेतून 1989 साली महाराष्ट्रातील औरंगाबाद येथे डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर वैद्यकीय प्रतिष्ठानची स्थापना 7 उच्च विद्याविभूषित वैद्यकीय डॉक्टर आणि 3-4 संघाच्या स्वयंसेवकांनी केली। त्यावेळी सर्व कार्यकर्त्यांच्या मनात असा विचार आला की या देशातील सर्व नागरिकांना, सर्वसामान्यांना परवडतील अशा प्रकारे वैद्यकीय सेवा देण्याचा कोणता मार्ग असू शकेल. आणि त्यामुळे जर सर्वच डॉक्टर सेवाभावी वृत्तीने समान प्रेरणेतून हा समाज माझा आहे अशा भावनेतून जर काम करू लागले तर भारत देशातील सर्व भागामध्ये वैद्यकीय सेवेचा दर्जा बदलेल, उंचावेल आणि सर्वसामान्यांच्या मनामध्ये वैद्यकीय क्षेत्राबद्दल जे मत आहे ते त्यांचं बदलण्यासाठी उपयुक्त राहील असा विचार मनात आला की या समाजाच्या समस्यांचं दर्शन आपल्याला काही करता येईल का. आणि त्याप्रमाणे सर्वप्रथम एक 40 ते 60 विद्यार्थ्यांची एक बैठक या विषयासाठी करण्यात आली. तोपर्यंत काही नाव नव्हतं, तर काय नाव द्यावं असा विचार आला. त्यावेळेला वेगवेगळ्या मंडळींनी वेगवेगळी नावं सुचवली. या उपक्रमाचं नाव 2006 साली सगळ्यात पहिल्यांदा सेवांकुर असं नक्की झालं. आणि 2016 पासून सगळ्यात प्रथम असा विचार आला की ड्युरिंग व्हेकेशन 1 वीक फॉर नेशन, एक सप्ताह देश के नाम. त्या कालखंडामध्ये आपण सर्व विद्यार्थ्यांना, आपण प्रार्थनेमध्ये जसं म्हणतो भारत माझा देश आहे, सारे भारतीय माझे बांधव आहेत, तर खरोखरच माझे बंधू राहतात कसे, दिसतात कसे, कोणची भाषा बोलतात, काय खातात, सणवार कसे करतात, त्यांच्या अडचणी काय आहेत, हे मला जर समजून घ्यायचं असेल तर मला त्याचं प्रत्यक्ष दर्शन घडवायला हवं. आणि त्याप्रमाणे छत्तीसगडमधील जशपूर नगर जेथे वनवासी कल्याण आश्रमाचा प्रारंभ झाला, या ठिकाणी सर्वप्रथम हा उपक्रम घेण्यात आला. दुसऱ्या वर्षी हा उपक्रम मध्य प्रदेश येथील भुआ बीच येथे संपन्न करण्यात आला. त्यानंतर चित्रकूट येथे जिथे भारतरत्न नानाजी देशमुख यांनी काम केले आहे त्या ठिकाणी हा उपक्रम झाला. त्यानंतर कन्याकुमारी येथे स्वर्गीय एकनाथजी रानडे ज्यांनी इथे विवेकानंद केंद्र, विवेकानंद शिला स्मारकाची निर्मिती केली, अशा ठिकाणी हा उपक्रम झाला. कोरोनाच्या आधीच झारखंड येथील बिष्णुपूर येथे पद्मश्री अशोकजी भगत यांनी वनवासी भागामध्ये जे कार्य केलं आहे तिथे हा उपक्रम संपन्न करण्यात आला. म्हणून या वर्षीचा हा उपक्रम आपण या स्थानी येता इथे संपन्न करीत आहोत.
The reality over here is completely different. We have so many different activities. Even during traveling in the train, we had train surveys and debates, which I never expected, honestly.
माझ्याकडे एक भोजन विभागाचा विद्यार्थी प्रतिनिधी, विद्यार्थी प्रमुख म्हणून जबाबदारी देण्यात आली होती. या जबाबदारीची जी काही महत्त्व आहे किंवा जे काही काम होतं ते अगदी जवळून पाहण्याचं आणि कशाप्रकारे ती सिच्युएशन हँडल करण्याचं काम असतं ते मी फार जवळून पाहिलेलं आहे. थोडक्यात सांगायचं झालं तर आम्ही 4 दिवस मागच्या 4 दिवसापासून जेव्हा इकडे यायच्या अगोदर वेगवेगळ्या ठिकाणाहून, वेगवेगळ्या गावाहून आपल्या सर्व विद्यार्थ्यांसाठी काही फूड पार्सल्स येत होते, वेगवेगळ्या व्यक्तींनी दिलेली. ते फूड पार्सल घ्यायचे, हॉस्पिटलला नेऊन तिथे कलेक्ट करायचे, नंतर त्यानंतर बॉक्स बनवून ते फूड पार्सल काउंट करून वेगवेगळ्या बॉक्समध्ये विद्यार्थ्यांच्या संख्येने आणि गटाच्या संख्येने एकत्र बांधून ठेवायचे. आणि कोणता बॉक्स कोणत्या दिवशी कोणत्या ट्रेनमध्ये कधी उघडायचं आहे एकदम शॉर्टपणे, एकदम मस्तपैकी माहिती करून आम्ही लावलेली होती. त्यावर 300 विद्यार्थ्यांच्यासाठी जी भोजनाची व्यवस्था केलेली होती ती अतिशय उत्तमपणे आणि सुबकपणे झालेली होती. म्हणजेच थोडक्यात पाहायचं झालं तर एकदम ज्याविषयी आपण बोलतो की मायक्रो प्लॅनिंग जी असते ती सेवांपूरमध्ये सगळ्यात छानपणे मला शिकायला भेटलेली आहे.
हम 12 लोग हैं, हम 12 मेडिकल स्टूडेंट्स हैं किंग्स सिवली में. हम फूड डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने का हमको बहुत मिला था. हम 12 लोग आके सब फूड डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करके हमको बहुत अच्छा लगा है.
पहिलंच 1 वीक फॉर नेशन आहे आणि ह्या 1 वीक फॉर नेशनमध्ये मी या बौद्धिक टीमची मेंबर असल्यामुळे टाईम मॅनेज कसं करायचं, लिडरशिप काय असतं, परत स्टेज डेअरिंग काय आहे, त्याचबरोबर कसा हा इतका मोठा 300 स्टुडंट्स लाईक 260 स्टुडंट्स आहेत आणि त्याच्याबरोबर डॉक्टर्स आहेत, हे कसं त्यांना मॅनेज करायचं, इतकं सगळं मायक्रो प्लॅनिंग हे सगळं मी बौद्धिक टीममध्ये राहून शिकले. त्याचबरोबर माणिक दांबे ताईंचं सेशन झालं होतं, त्यामध्ये आम्हाला ताईंनी खेळाच्या माध्यमाद्वारे फार अशा छोट्या छोट्या क्वालिटीज शिकवून दिल्या, जे की मला एक वाक्य बोलावंसं वाटतं की व्हॅल्यू फार इम्पॉर्टंट असतात. सक्सेस जरी डिफिकल्ट असली तरी व्हॅल्यूशी कधी कॉम्प्रोमाइज नाही करायचं आणि टीम स्पिरिट ठेवायची. इंटरडिपेंडन्स इज ऑलवेज बेटर दॅन इंडिपेंडन्स.
What do I like about 1 week for nation? बहुत सारी चीज़ें. एक तो इतना ब्रिलियंट कॉन्सेप्ट है, बट पर्टिकुलरली फ्रॉम द कंटेंट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू आई थिंक जो बौद्धिक सेशंस करते हैं दे हैव बीन एक्सट्रीमली फिनोमिनल. स्पेशली जो डॉक्टर आर बालू सर के साथ एक सेशन हुआ था हमारा अबाउट स्वामी विवेकानंद एंड द यूथ. इट वॉज पर्टिकुलरली ऑ इंस्पायरिंग. इट एक्चुअली ओपनड अप आवर आईज. मैं सीखने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ कि मैं अभी स्वामी विवेकानंद की टीचिंग्स अपने लाइफ में मैं कैसे अप्लाई कर सकती हूँ. सो आई थिंक फॉर मी दैट इज़ द हाईलाइट ऑफ 1 week for nation.
He made us understand the meaning of seva in real sense, and I think this is something which every budding doctor or every budding medical professional should know. For me, being able to pursue this education in itself is an honor, and being a part of something like Sevankur is a very, very humbling experience.
लेकिन मेरे सोच में सेवांकुर एक राष्ट्र निर्माण का एक प्रक्रिया है. ये तो इस तरह का कार्यक्रम है जो हमारा अंदर का विवेकानंद को जागरूक करने का एक अपॉर्चुनिटी है. इस तरह का प्रोग्राम देश में सब जगह में होना चाहिए. विवेकानंद का एक स्टेटमेंट है, गिव मी अ हैंडफुल ऑफ यंग मैन एंड वीमेन एंड आई विल चेंज द वर्ल्ड. ये प्रोग्राम उस तरह का यंग मैन एंड वीमेन को तैयार कर रहा है एंड दे विल श्योरली चेंज दिस ग्रेट कंट्री ऑफ भारत.
या वर्षी सेवांकुर भारतच्या 1 week फॉर नेशन या प्रोग्रामसाठी सारागूर येथे आलेलो होतो. ज्यावेळेस आपण अशा कॅम्पमध्ये येतो किंवा मेडिकल कॅम्पमध्ये येतो आणि देशाच्या ज्या भागात जातो की जिथे अजिबातच मेडिकल व्यवस्था नाही आहे किंवा जिथे अजिबातच हेल्थ केअर रिलेटेड प्रॉब्लेम खूप सारे आहेत, त्या ठिकाणी आज आम्ही आलो आहेत. देवनाडी नावाचं एक छोटंसं गाव आहे. त्या ठिकाणी ट्रायबल एरियातले ट्रायबल्स राहत आहेत. त्यांना कुठल्याही प्रकारच्या हेल्थ रिलेटेड व्यवस्था गव्हर्नमेंटकडून मिळत नाही आहेत. अशा ठिकाणी येणं, ह्या लोकात राहणं, या लोकांचे प्रॉब्लेम जाणून घेणं, यातून जो अनुभव आहे तो एक लाईफ चेंजिंग मुवमेंट आहे. कारण इथून खरं तर आपले गोल चेंज होत आहेत. डॉक्टरांनी ज्यावेळेस समाजाचा हा व्ह्यू जर बघितला, समाजाचे हे लोक जर बघितले, तर त्यांच्या मनात नक्कीच ही भावना येईल की आपल्यावर समाजाचं काहीतरी कर्तव्य आहे, आपल्यावर समाजाचं काहीतरी कर्ज आहे आणि त्यासाठी आपण काहीतरी केलंच पाहिजे. त्यामुळं हा जो कॅम्प होता तो 100% यशस्वी आहे आणि प्रत्येकानं या कॅम्पचा अनुभव घेतलाच पाहिजे. कारण यातून खूप साऱ्या गोष्टी शिकायच्या आहेत आणि मी सर्वांना सजेस्ट करेल की आपण सर्वांनी एकदा तरी सेवांकुर कॅम्पचा अनुभव घ्या.
मला सगळ्यात जास्त भावलेला क्षण म्हणजे ज्यावेळी आम्ही ट्रायबल एरियामध्ये जाऊन त्या ट्रायबल बंधू भगिनीसोबत रात्री राहिलो, त्या ठिकाणी जेवलो. त्या ठिकाणची परिस्थिती खूप बिकट होती. ना घरी गॅस नव्हता, ना पंचपक्वानाचं अन्न नव्हतं, ना फॅन नव्हता. इतकी गरिबी होती की त्यावेळी वाटायचं की लोक इथं जगतातच कशी, राहतातच कशी. पण त्यांच्या चेहऱ्यावरचं समाधान मात्र खूप वेगळं होतं. आणि त्याचवेळी मलाही कुठंतरी वाटलं की आपण आपलं आयुष्य सोडूनसुद्धा इतरांसाठी सुद्धा कधी जगलं पाहिजे. आणि हीच प्रेरणा मला या सेवांकुरच्या माध्यमातून मिळाली.
जिथं आमचा स्टे होता, MC थोरू गावाचं नाव होतं, तिथल्या लोकांनी एवढं आमचं प्रेम भरून स्वागत केलं. ते जाताना रडत होते. मला आपसुकच डॉक्टर बाबा आमटेंच्या 4 ओळी लगेच आठवल्या तिथे की शृंखला पायी असू दे मी गीत गतीचे गाईन, दुःख उधळावया आसवांना वेळ नाही. म्हणून मग असं वाटत होतं की यार इथून जाऊच नाही, इथंच राहावं, यांचंच बनून राहावं, यांच्यासाठीच काहीतरी काम करण्याचं एक म्हणजे वाहून घ्यावं यांच्यासाठीच, असं काहीतरी म्हणजे निर्माण झाली भावना.
या 1 week फॉर नेशनमध्ये आवडणारी सर्वात जास्त गोष्ट मला होती की मेडिकल कॅम्प. या मेडिकल कॅम्पमध्ये मला मेडिसिन शिकायला मिळालं. कारण तो मेडिसिनचा असा एक सब्जेक्ट आहे जो माझा सिलेबसमध्ये नसतो.
ज्याच्यामुळे आम्हाला शिकायला भेटत नाही. तर तो सर्वात जास्त बेस्ट एक्सपिरियन्स होता माझ्यासाठी मेडिसिन्सचा, जो मला तिथे शिकायला भेटला. जो मी असं आणि त्यांच्या लँग्वेजमध्ये मी त्यांना समजून सांगितलं की कधी घ्यायचं आहे आणि कधी नाही घ्यायचं आहे ते.
डॉक्टर्स आर कन्सिडर्ड ॲज द बेस्ट सोशल चेंज मेकर्स. या सगळ्या मुख्यतः शहरी भागातून आलेल्या किंवा वनवासी विभागाची अगदी तोंडओळख देखील नसलेल्या सगळ्या मुलांना, जे की समाजामध्ये एक प्रतिष्ठेच्या वैद्यकीय क्षेत्रामध्ये आता पुढे जाणार आहेत, या सगळ्या मुलांना आपला देश समजावा, आपला समाज आतून बाहेरून समजावा, सारे भारतीय माझे बांधव आहेत, ही भावना त्यांच्या मनामध्ये यावी, या दृष्टीने आयोजित केलेल्या 1 वीक फॉर नेशन या कार्यक्रमामध्ये तो भाव साध्य होईल इतक्या प्रकारचं अनुभव गाठीशी बांधून ही मुलं आपल्या आपल्या घरी जातात.
ಸೇವೆಯಂಬಯಜ್ಞದಲ್ಲಿ ಸವಿದೆಯಂತೆ ಉರಿಯುವ ಸೇವೆಯಂಬಯಜ್ಞದಲ್ಲಿ ಸವಿದೆಯಂತೆ ಉರಿಯುವ ಧ್ಯೇಯ ಮಹಾಜಲದಿಯೆಡೆಗೆ ಸಲಿಲವಾಗಿ ಹರಿಯುವ ಧ್ಯೇಯ ಮಹಾಜಲದಿಯೆಡೆಗೆ ಸಲಿಲವಾಗಿ ಹರಿಯುವ ಲೋಕಹಿತದ ಕಾಯಕ ನಾಡಿಗ ಭಯದಾಯಕ ಲೋಕಹಿತದ ಕಾಯಕ ನಾಡಿಗ ಭಯದಾಯಕ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯಾಗಲೆಂದು ನೈಜ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರ ಸೇವಕ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯಾಗಲೆಂದು ನೈಜ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರ ಸೇವಕ ಸೇವೆಯೆಂಬ ಯಜ್ಞದಲ್ಲಿ ಸವಿದೆಯಂತೆ ಉರಿಯುವ ಸೇವೆಯೆಂಬ ಯಜ್ಞದಲ್ಲಿ ಸವಿದೆಯಂತೆ ಉರಿಯುವ.
अगदी पूर्वापार भारतात वैद्य आणि शिक्षक या दोन व्यावसायिकांना समाजात फार मान होता. वैद्यकीय सेवा आणि ज्ञानदान या त्यांच्या कामांच्या पलीकडे जाऊन अन्य क्षेत्रातही त्यांचं योगदान असायचं. याचं कारण या दोन्ही
I just want to mention that I was part of this 7-day journey. Now we have just revisited Sevankur Bharat's 1 week for nation journey from 2022, which was held at Dr. Balu's SVYM campus in Saragur. It was an unforgettable experience for our students, and we look forward to offering the same transformative experience to future Sevankurites. Now, let's move forward to the most crucial part of today's session, the much anticipated discussion with Dr. R. Balu. We are thrilled to hear his insights and engage in an inspiring conversation about leadership and public service centered around his latest book, Power Within. It's my pleasure to invite Mr. Mukund Kulkarni and Ms. Medha Deshpande to the stage to lead the conversation. Please. Mr. Mukund Kulkarni, co-founder and director at Expert Global Solutions, where he oversees engineering services, technical documentation and the corporate HR function with a focus on customer satisfaction and competency development. I now request Mr. Rushi Pawar to kindly felicitate Mr. Mukund Kulkarni with a memento and a bouquet. Thank you, sir. Ms. Medha Deshpande, founder and CEO of Growth Catalyst Consulting Private Limited, with expertise in business analysis, data analysis, and the Internet of Things. I request Mr. Gokarna Shevale to kindly felicitate Ms. Medha Deshpande with a memento and a bouquet. Gokarna is a third year MBBS student of Government Medical College and holds Sevankur Bharat responsibility. She holds the responsibility as a college Upakram Pramukh. Now I request Dr. R. Balu sir to kindly come upon the stage. Now it's time for me to hand over the baton of this session to Mr. Mukund and Ms. Medha as we dive into the insightful world of power within, the leadership legacy of Narendra Modi. Mr. Mukund and Ms.
Hello. Respected Balu sir and audience, sabhi ko namaste. In the opening remarks, Dr. Nitin mentioned that the book is on Modi, written by Dr. Balu sir, organized by Sevankur, and people from entrepreneurship are conducting the interview. So we are adding one more complication into the whole dynamics. Let me set the context. When subject came forward, we deliberated. And sir, what we realized, what Dr. Nitin mentioned, that there are leaders from entrepreneurship here, there are social leaders here, there are leaders from professionals here. और हम लीडर का प्रॉब्लम ये है कि हम खुद होके सीखने कहाँ नहीं जाते. So we thought a leader like you who has written books, why not to push people to learn something, and that is how this interview is configured. So this is the first objective of this interaction, to enrich our leadership. We are doing good in our field, but this is an opportunity to enrich our leadership. Sir, another objectives that we have kept in front of us is Bharat is progressing. So we are also progressing. You have seen grassroots. You have seen apex like Harvard. And for almost 10-15 years, you are monitoring journey of this country and contributing into that process. So in this process, we want to understand the journey of the country through your explanation and through your answers. And last important point is, we are socially responsible people. How we can contribute into progress of our nation is one of the objectives that we have kept. Before interview, I think it is very important that with reference to the book and with reference to the objective, sir, you should set the context first, you should set the tone first, and then we will start with the question answer. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mukundji, and thank you both, Medhaji and everybody here, for inviting me first to share thoughts, and second is it's always very pleasing to see an overflowing audience, and I hope you'll also be pleased after you read the book. And I am sure there's a code or some nowadays language of the younger generation, QR code, scan and then buy it. But I think what you say is right. I want to share two questions that people ask me. This book was released the last week of June, on June 28th actually. And it's seen quite a journey already in 3-4 months. Within a month it became a national bestseller. It's a global edition available around the world. But more importantly, two questions which people ask me the entire journey I've had through India and outside on this book. Why write a book on leadership? And why also include Prime Minister Modi as one of the characters or the central protagonists of the book? I'll start with answering those two questions because people keep asking me that question. My life has been in the grassroots with people, especially having lived and worked with indigenous tribal communities. At some point of time in my life, I was deeply angered by how the state conducts itself towards indigenous people. When I say state, I mean the entire country as a government, not individual states. 8% of India's population treated with scant respect, seen as political tools to be played around with. I come from an area where 4 reservoirs were built, what was earlier called so-called temples of modern India, a forest declared national park without legal sanctity, without the process of law getting complete, deeply believing in the call of Tyaga and Seva given by Swami Vivekananda and uh, Seva and Satya, Ahimsa and Satya given by Mahatma Gandhi. I thought, but on one side, and other side being troubled by an exploiting state itself. Angered, did my usual satyagrahas. I was a very confrontational activist. I used to sit on the streets as part of Team Anna and all the stories that go with it. I was actually upset that a country which is supposed to be benevolent and protective of its citizens doesn't even understand citizens, doesn't have space for the voices to be heard, doesn't really care. And I thought these policies are messed up. Then after some time I felt it's not the policy, maybe the policy maker is messed up. He has no idea what he does or thinks. Sitting in Delhi, in Karnataka, we say the word used for a village is Halli. So people in Delhi have no idea for Hallis. And I used to get really angered. And in this anger, I thought more education will help me and kept on acquiring degrees, went up to the Mecca of policy making, Harvard. At some point of time, I learned a lot, but it never answered the questions I was wrestling with. Cut a long story short, came back, my battles continued. I started taking this battle, making the battles legal. So took the state, the national government, to human rights commissions, to courts, won my cases, surprisingly. And I came back and I thought I must be a celebrity now. I have non-violently got justice for my tribals. I got land released, sort of sitting in cloud nine, and Kempaya traditional tribal chieftain who taught me leadership. He didn't go to any school, he didn't go to Harvard like me, but he knew leadership much better than anybody I know today. He's passed away now. He came to me very sullen, sad, and displeased with my achievement. For once, after being with him for 15, 20 years those days, I thought this fellow will celebrate and put a garland around me and say, here is our God who got his land. And this fellow was so disappointed. And what he said changed my perspective of my own life and its compass. I said, I have won the battle for you. You should celebrate. He said, no, you won the battle, but you lost your tribal identity. I didn't understand this question. Tribals for centuries cultivated land as a commune, as a collective. And here I had won a case which gave them 2.5 acres land each, a house each. And he said, जल जंगल जमीन के बारे में आपको कुछ भी मालूम नहीं है, वो तो सिर्फ पदार्थ नहीं है हमारे लिए, वो एक एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ इमोशन है, भावना का इमोशन का एक्सप्रेशन है. उस एक्सप्रेशन को आपने, he said in Kannada, नाशा माडबिट्री, you destroyed it. So you didn't win, you lost, you made us lose our identity. And then he added the next statement. He said, आपको क्या पता लगेगा आइडेंटिटी के बारे में, आपको तो आइडेंटिटी ही नहीं है. I was born in Bangalore, grew up in Bangalore, never saw an Indian village. This was the first village I went, educated around the world. Was medicine my identity? Was Bangalore my identity? Was living with tribals my identity? Was education at Harvard my identity? I had no idea of anything. The day he said, you will never understand because you have no identity. You are a lost person. But we had one. You took it away. Then I realized the real identity for me was a Bharatiya identity. Unfortunately, today we say Kannadiga hai, Maharashtrian hai. Maharashtra ke andar Marthwada hai, Vidarbha hai. We are all become experts in fragmentizing identities. But I thought India as a civilization unites identities. And that's when I realized I did not know my own identity. And I thought, let me understand my life and my mission of understanding leadership through the Bharatiya lens. So my journey began with simple things. I noticed when I was much before this, when I was talking to my my son 3-4 years old, he was enjoying Tom and Jerry on television much more than Jataka tales I told him. No, हम तो इतने आसान से टॉम एंड जेरी के बारे में सोचते हैं कि सच हो सकता है, लेकिन इतना इतना मॉरल्स है पंचतंत्र और जातका टेल्स में, वो तो कहानी है बच्चों के लिए, अमर चित्र कथा कहानी है. सो वी हैव फॉरगॉटन द कनेक्शन टू आवर मदर, but we acquire new connections. Mahatma Gandhi says our culture is something where every door and window is open for the wind of every world to blow inside. But what Gandhi did not predict was we Indians are so good, we allow every other wind to come inside and blow away the inside also outside. So we lose our identity so easily. And I was no different. I had been educated in so-called Macaulaized educational systems. Maybe at the highest levels I went. But then I had no true identity. And I thought, let me start my journey with this. So I went deep into Ramayana, Mahabharata, Kautilya's Arthashastra, Shankara's Atmabodha, Viveka Chudamani, went deeper into Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads and realized these are not spiritual texts. These are messages for mankind, how to live his life. These are not dharmic records. These are journeys carved out for how we should live our life. If we only could follow that, the world will not be what it is today. I wrote it, I put it all together, 12-13 years of scriptural research. I just recorded it. Then I realized I can never have an exemplar to represent this. So I just gave up. And I went to my guru, the Ramakrishna Order, Swami Sureshanji, he's passed away now. I told him, I put all this together, but I want to really find an exemplar. If I write about a man dead and gone, if I say Vivekananda was like that, Gandhi was like this, सब बोलेंगे कि वो तो मर चुके हैं. And we are all very nice. In India, we are great people. The best way to emulate somebody is to put them on a statue, put a garland once in a year and celebrate a Jayanti, declare a holiday and then say we've done our jobs. That's a proxy for not living their lives. I thought I didn't want my book to reflect that kind of an attitude. So I thought I need to find an exemplar. And he told me, this was 13-14 years ago, he told me, I don't know much about all this. I don't know leadership. You ask me to teach you Advaita, I'll do that. But this I don't know. But one young man came to the Rajkot ashram, he then went to Belur Math, he came back to Rajkot and said, I want to be a monk, take me into your order. And the Swamiji said, no. Your destiny is something else. Your destiny is much greater than being a monk, so don't become a monk, and sent him off. Disappointed, he left, but today he's the chief minister of a state. Why don't you research his life? I thought he's somewhere, I'm in a forest, in Yoga. So I just gave up. I wrote another book called Leadership Lessons for Daily Living. But 3.5 years ago when the call came, I thought, let me go and see, and life was different. So, and this commission reports to him and his HR council. And so opportunity to meet with him, interact with him, understand how he runs this country, how he thinks, how he acts, how he decides. A year into my working with him, I thought I should ask him this question. That I think you are a flesh and blood example for my book. Somebody who was selling tea on the platform of a railway station could negotiate complexities of India's politics, the noisy politics we have. However vibrant democracy, it's very noisy in India too. And all kinds of, where fake is more real than real today. Where a lot of mud is thrown at you as much as you have 78% popularity. How do you negotiate these complexities? How did you reach this? How do you negotiate the barriers? Let me just research your life. I researched the scriptures, but I didn't have any research of his life. So please give me permission. He put 3 conditions to me. 2 I think I nearly fulfilled. The 3rd is all in your hands. The first condition he said is, there are enough Bodhi Bhakts have written about me. There are more than 400 books, so don't waste your time. I don't want one more book. If you can write an academic book, if you can write a book which brings out India's Bharatiya Parampara Adharik Nayakatva ke bare mein likh sakte hain, to likhna padega. So this book is not really about the Prime Minister. This book is about India's contribution to leadership to the world, using Prime Minister as a case study, a protagonist. And the second condition he put, the first I have fulfilled. I can tell you this book is as academic as it can get. The foreword to the book is written by the former Dean of Harvard Business School, Nitin Noria. People around the world, from Bill Gates to Anand Mahindra to N. Chandra of Tata Sons, to have read the book and endorsed it. It's an academic book. It's only 250 pages. The book looks big. But 50 pages of the book is my research notes, because the world should be convinced it is not another sycophant writing it. It's as objective as you can be. Everything has been validated, triangulated, verified, and then written. The glossaries and the 30, 40 pages, because a lot of Sanskrit is there. So I know all of us are not very familiar with Sanskrit. My own journey is still ongoing in Sanskrit. So a lot of etymological description of why I use a particular Sanskrit verse or a word is there. And the second condition he said is this should be a book which will tell the world leadership in India is far older than what is available outside. This is विश्व गुरु का संदेश नायकत्व के बारे में इस बुक के माध्यम से जाना पड़ेगा पूरा संसार को. It is now a global book. It's very popular. It's selling very well all over the world. Hopefully it will make an impact. The third condition he said was एक किताब पढ़ने के बाद देश के लिए, देश की सेवा के लिए 1000 लीडर्स निकलना चाहिए. That's all in your hands. If you can read this book, if you can understand what is in it, if you can live this book and its message, if you can bring out the power within you outside, I think then the third condition will be fulfilled. Each of us have extraordinary opportunities to live leadership in our own spaces. We don't have to become the president of a country, the prime minister, or the chief minister. In our own small spaces, we all have extraordinary opportunities to express that power within. India has always celebrated people who are Indriya Vijayis. Indriya Nigraha is more respected. People who conquer Aham is more respected than people who express Aham. And this is the world that we need. That's a world that's the kind of leadership that can solve the world's problems, not make it worse for us. And hopefully that's what I'll achieve if you can live this message. Thank you.
Namaskar everyone. Today morning we had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Balu, and I can tell you he has a great sense of humor, and I was surprised with his great Hindi also. So and he asked me whether you have read the whole book. So I was discussing one very small snippet from the book, and he said, okay, so looks like you have read the book. And then he asked me whether you have read the whole book. So I was very honest with him that I haven't read the complete book, and Mukund and I are sharing the parts of the book. But sir, I promise you that I'll be reading the whole book. Yeah.
I promise will not be enough. You have to read the book and live the message.
I will, sir. Yeah. And one more thing that he mentioned just now, that he described the way his book has been structured, and he told about the 50 pages that are the part of the index, the so-called not the index, the annexure or the bibliography part of the book. I can tell you that the bibliography part of the book is also equally interesting and equally informative as is the book. So I have never seen such a book, where the end part of the book is also equally interesting. So thank you, sir, for writing such a great book, and I'm sure everybody here will go through it and live it. So while you were talking about your journey and the way you have traversed it and the complexities that you faced, so that reminded me of one part of your book, which is in the very initial pages of the book, where you have used a term called BANI to describe today's world. Okay, so BANI, he has the full form of BANI is brittle, anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible world. Okay, and what Dr. Balu says about his book is that he is set to in this book he wants to explore the leadership models that will help to solve the problems of a complex world, which is BANI. Okay, so Dr. Balu, I would request you to elaborate on this term, which was coined by an American author, Jamais Kosek, and how the leaders here, so the leaders here present in the audience are not public leaders. They have their own ecosystem, they have their own small world where they are trying to bring some change, lead. So for the greater good of the audience, please explain us what BANI is.
I think you explained what BANI is, but I think that's a reality today. You get a cold in US, Sri Lanka will sneeze. And that's the complexity of relationships. We don't understand. Who gets elected in the US is going to determine how half the world is going to operate. 68% of the world is having elections this year. Not a single world leader except Prime Minister Modi has spoken beyond the elections. He's the only one who has the courage to say 25 years from today India will be this. Everybody else says if I win I'll do this. Because the world is complex, it's changed. Today it is who wins is going to decide a war some other place. Who loses is going to decide whether war will stop in some place. It's so complex and we can never imagine this kind of relationships. Cyber threats are more real than actual threats. And this is a reality, and I don't want to get into being in government. I know the number of cyber threats India faces every day, and the citizens don't even know it. It's only email and some message comes, some hack happens. We think it's big, but it's very complex. What kind of leadership can solve this? A leadership which has got a standard operating procedure or a toolkit cannot solve it anymore. And I don't even believe, I would hesitate to use the word leaders. I don't think there are leaders in this room. I don't even believe in the known form of leaders. You cannot be a leader. That's a very Western construct. In India, we say we only exercise leadership. यहाँ तो कर्म योगा बनता है, वो leadership है. Like it's not about me with followers behind me who will come behind me, and that is the Western narrative of leadership. But here we are not. We don't have to be 24/7 leaders, but we all have opportunities to exercise leadership, and everybody in this room exercises great leadership in their own spaces, but doesn't have to be all the time. In their homes, they may not exercise leadership. Somebody exercises leadership in office. Somebody exercises leadership on the streets. It's all different. So, a person who's exercising leadership, if he's going to go with the existing toolkit, we force fit a solution framework to fit the competence he has got. And that's why it doesn't succeed. That's why the problems of the world are not getting solved. But every problem is unique in its expression, and therefore my hunger to discover solutions should come from the space of humility and vulnerability. The moment you say I'm being a leader, you're expected to not demonstrate vulnerability. You're supposed to be at the top. You're supposed to control. Whereas it's not about that. You're supposed to seek. You're supposed to learn. You're supposed to co-discover the problem and therefore co-describe the solution. And co-generate it with people, not for people. A CEO of a company works for his company. A leadership exerciser works with his people in the company. It's a huge difference. So to me, a complex world needs that kind of openness, that kind of space, that kind of living in the moment and not being trapped into the past actions that he had or the future solutions he's going to create. But being in the here and now, giving the present moment of time, having the openness to see a problem from a fresh set of eyes beyond just what, if I were to explain this, we all have experiences in our life. But tragedy is we allow those experiences to start influencing our actions. Experience should just inform our actions, but not influence it. That's the kind of leadership a BANI world demands today.
Hello. Yes. Medha, before you go to your next question, sir, a sub question, maybe quick answer. You mentioned about getting trapped into a toolkit kind of solution, leadership toolkit kind of solution. Do you foresee that we are really trapped into that? And if yes, how to break the barriers?
I think it's very comforting to be trapped into that. We don't even know we are trapped because we enjoy it. It's so nice being, conformism is nice. So tomorrow morning, if I ask you to be a non-conformist, you feel it's very unnerving. It creates tremendous insecurity. Intellectual and emotional insecurity is far higher than financial insecurity. Because financial insecurity, you can declare insolvency as a company head. But you don't know what to do with your emotional insecurities. You don't know what, you think consulting a psychiatrist will help. But you are faced with problems you can't even solve. But in my opinion, the adequacy you need is driven by inadequacy that you feel. Self-doubt is a great weapon you can have. Self-doubt which is doesn't push you into an important helplessness, but drives you with a hunger for acquiring knowledge to solve that. Inadequacy is something extraordinary. So to me, that's how I would look at it.
Go ahead.
So the toolkit is, you can't have a toolkit. Because a toolkit is something you already crafted and put inside.
Yes.
And you tend to use it. You have a hammer, you only see nails. Here I'm asking you to work without a hammer and discover what you can find.
Thank you, sir. So there's a next question for you. so in one of the chapters, you have quoted the leadership expert Warren Bennis. And I quote here that we need leaders who can hold to two contradictory thoughts at a time. Okay, and then after that, you also described in the annexure part of it, you have described the leadership of Abraham Lincoln. Okay, and Abraham Lincoln, he used the team of rival strategy in the way he managed or led his team, and they led the struggle there. Okay, and amid all the chaos, he was able to find a path, and he was able to define what was his focus area, where should he be focusing, and at the same time, how do you think, how would you guide such leaders, and what should they be doing in these situations, and throwing some more light on that team of rivals strategy.
I actually write it not to justify Abraham Lincoln's actions, to actually, the context in which I write, that's the epilogue. Epilogue is titled, and that context is important because if I have to explain it, it's titled The Dharma of Legacy and the Legacy of Dharma. Now, like I said, this is a book on Indic appreciation of leadership. I argue how Purusharthas, the expression of Artha, Moksha, Kama and Dharma, and talking of Dharma as righteousness, is the only way this world can progress. In Delhi, the Delhi declaration of the G20 was, the Prime Minister said the 4 P's, people, planet, prosperity and peace. Now, today's world is you have to balance economy with ecology. You can't tell India that you'll have no electricity, but all of you are dharmic, so please live without food and electricity. It doesn't work. You have to provide food, you have to provide houses, you have to provide electricity. At the same time, you have to protect the environment. And the fight for resources around the world is causing all the conflicts. If you can see whether it's Ukraine or whether it's Palestine, finally it's resources and control over resources. That's the bottom line. Everything else is ego expressing itself, but that's control for resources. So my describing the chapter is to write how nations and civilizations have shifts in their trajectories of their country's growth. I bring in 3 world leaders to show how they changed the destiny of their countries. And not saying that they were not great, they were great, but if they were to be alive today, would they have been able to do what they did? No. Because leadership is always in context. And in the context in which Abraham Lincoln operated, team of rivals could have succeeded for him, but in a different context, it will not work. The problem is if team of rivals becomes a toolkit, the way Jack Welch led GE or Steve Jobs led thing, we think that imitating that becomes leadership for us today. And that is what I'm trying to warn against, that experience should only inform you. Their experiences as well as our experience should inform us. Abraham Lincoln changed the destiny of his country, not by his management or leadership strategy, but bringing in something very powerful. He tried to communicate the loss of controlling slaves, the loss of ownership of another human body, the loss of fraternity and liberty and all that, which the American Constitution promised. In doing that, he lost his life, but he still changed the nation's trajectory. They have still not discovered equality. Their country, they're still struggling. They can't even get a woman elected as president. So the change began then, but it not fructified. I write about Lee Kuan Yew in the context of Singapore, a country which had nothing, just broken away from Malaysia, declared independence, same legacies of India as colonization, etc. But he took a call that I don't care what the world calls me, they can call me a dictator, but I'm going to make my country great. Single-handedly pursued it. If Lee Kuan Yew were alive today, he couldn't do the same thing in today's world. But that was necessary, that worked then, but that can't become the model of leadership. I write about Deng Xiaoping, who also changed the destiny of his country, recovering from the Cultural Revolution, having a particular line of thought. He had the courage to say, black cat or a white cat, I don't care about the color. If it can catch a mouse, it's enough. I need to fight poverty. I'll imitate the economic model that will work for us. Which was not easy for him to have said that in the time in which he operated. Today, China is different. But he shifted China's growth trajectory. Today, China is what it is because he set the foundations. I bring about Prime Minister Modi and his leadership and the way he's led his life as an opportunity for the world to solve problems, not just for India. So I say we need to understand the dharma of his legacy. What is it? And the legacy of righteousness itself in the world, legacy of dharma. How that can, what can save the world. So in that context, I write about Abraham Lincoln. But in passing, I just mentioned that he had a strategy of team of rivals and all that. Those are just tools he used, which worked in a particular context and situation and time frame. In today's technologically driven world with so much of interconnectedness, as I'm speaking, it's getting live telecast. Somebody will be commenting, somebody will be criticizing, somebody will be saying this is useless, somebody will think this is great. Now that's a reality of life and I have to live with it. I cannot renegotiate it. So we all have to live with that, the reality of life. So to me, it's about how do you bring about a civilizational shift. Let's look at what is that shift, just to explain it. No country in the world has anybody been able to bring about a balance between short-termism and long-termism. He has to provide the 10 kg rice free, he has to give the house free, maybe he has even declared electricity free, who knows. That's short-termism, but without sacrificing Vikasit Bharat, 2047, what needs to be done. The strategic thinking, the systems approach, being strong and at the same time being smart in diplomacy. Today we have the courage to say, I'll send my fighters into their other country to do what has to be done. At the same time, I love peace. I have to fight for it too. Being popular, at the same time being hated by such a large number of people. That's a reality of today. Being Sita Prajna, introducing the farms bill with conviction, withdrawing it and still not getting affected by it. It takes a lot of courage to do that. To a leader to come out and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Maybe I didn't understand people. It's easy for us to sit outside and post-mortem and comment, but you go through what he goes through and he's unaffected. That's the beauty of it. So I think to understand, Danny Roderick, I write about it, describes saying that the trilemma, he says it's impossible for a nation to pursue nationalism and civilizational greatness, democracy and economic growth. He says only two can be chosen. India has proved all three can be chosen. Today we are civilizationally proud. When the Prime Minister came back from America 10-15 days ago, he brought back 300 artifacts which are smuggled out of this country. Today the Annapurna statue in Varanasi is artifact just smuggled out, we brought back and we're again worshipping. So right from culinary diplomacy to making Indians around the world proud of their background, and earlier diaspora was seen as just check writing people sending checks to favorite charities or sending remittances back into India. We always spoke of them as the brain drain, they ran away. Today you address them as great ambassadors of India. We want you to be there and spread India's goodness everywhere. So that kind of civilizational pride we take. When you say Bharatiya, we are proud. Two, we are the world's largest functioning democracy. The amount of elections that happens in this country, the panchayats that are getting elected, whatever some reports talk about, I can tell you, I'm not telling again, I don't have a banner to speak on anybody's behalf, but just take every state, even the recent elections, transfer of power happens so easily. People get elected, people lose, people win. It's still a functioning democracy. And our economic growth is the fastest growing economy in the world today, whether we want it or not. So we have achieved what Danny Roderick as a political scientist feels it's impossible. And that is what is the model I'm talking for the world. The model of Purushartha is guiding us.
मुझे लगता है कि जो स्टडी हमने किया, जो क्वेश्चंस आपको पूछ रहे हैं, वो बहुत लॉजिकल वे में जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि आपने फार्मर बिल का, फार्मर लॉ का मेंशन किया, एंड ट्रस्ट मी दैट इज आवर नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन। ओके सर, थोड़ा सा मैं हिंदी इसलिए यूज कर रहा हूं क्योंकि हमारे कुछ ऑडियंस है वो हिंदी भी प्रेफर करेगा।
मेरा हिंदी में पास हो गया।
हाँ, सवाल
सर्टिफिकेट भी दिया गया मुझे, so उसमें हिंदी में भी आंसर करने का प्रयत्न करूंगा।
सर, ये टू फोल्ड क्वेश्चन है on decision making. One part is it is extension of Meda's question कि complicated situation है, आपने फ्रेगमेंटेड आइडेंटिटी की बात की है, लीडरशिप में भी वो है, कोई स्ट्रांग लीडर महाराष्ट्र से आता है, साउथ से आता है, नॉर्थ से आता है और अपना आइडेंटिटी लेके कैबिनेट में आता है, बट हमें कॉन्वर्जेंस वाला डिसीजन लेना है, इज वन पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन, हाउ टू गो अबाउट इट इज वन। और दूसरा आपने जो फार्मर लॉ का बात किया कि द लीडर इज इन स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट पोजिशन, लेकिन सर्कमस्टांशियल आपने बोला कि डिसीजन वो विड्रॉ करना पड़ा, रिवर्सल करना पड़ा। तो क्वेश्चन टू फोल्ड ऐसा है कि कॉन्फ्लिक्टिंग सिचुएशन में, आइडेंटिटी क्राइसिस वाले सिचुएशन में, व्हाट आर दोज की एस्पेक्ट्स दैट यू हैव ऑब्जर्व्ड इन अराइविंग एट कॉन्वर्जिंग डिसीजन मेकिंग इज पार्ट ए, एंड पार्ट बी कि हमें लगता है कि डिसीजन लॉजिकल वे से नहीं जा रहा है, तो हाउ टू विड्रॉ इट, how that mindset that you have observed which we should learn from that? So these are two folds of question. You can modify and enlighten us.
In the book I write, मैं एक भारतीय संस्कृति के आधारित एक प्रैक्टिस के बारे में लिखा हूँ, दार्शनिक फेज। हम तो सोचते हैं कि दर्शन जब बोलते हैं तो हम सोचते हैं कि जैसे मैं आज सुबह एक ज्योतिर्लिंग देखने के लिए गया था, दर्शन के लिए गया था। हमारे लिए दर्शन का अर्थ यह होता है कि मंदिर चलेंगे, मंदिर में दर्शन करेंगे और नमस्कार करेंगे, वापस आ जाएंगे। वो अर्थ नहीं है। वो दार्शनिक फेज से सेल्फ ऑब्जर्वेशन का, रमण महर्षि बोलते हैं सिर्फ एक प्रश्न का उत्तर देना चाहिए, हु एम आई? Just be the observer for yourself. Now, if you are an observer, what does darshana do? Darshana is essentially a practice we travel around the country. It's not about worshipping Jyotirlingas. Any linga you can worship. But the travel takes you through an experience which you reflect on. अंदर का भी दार्शनिक फेज में रहते हैं, बाहर का भी दर्शन करते रहते हैं। So, दोनों के बारे में सोचना ही लीडरशिप है। रिफ्लेक्टिव लीडरशिप उस समय आता है। अगर रिफ्लेक्शन करते हैं तो यू कैन गो टू द बालकनी और हेलीकॉप्टर व्यू ले सकते हैं। लाइक रामकृष्ण परमहंस सेज बी द वॉचमैन ऑफ योरसेल्फ, रमण महर्षि सेज बी एन ऑब्जर्वर। ऑब्जर्वर स्टेटस के बारे में लिखा हूं। अगर ऑब्जर्वर स्टेटस में पहुंचते हैं तो हम देख सकते हैं कि अगर मेरा डिसीजन ठीक है या नहीं। तो लीडरशिप इज ऑलवेज इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट। माय डेफिनेशन ऑफ इंडिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ लीडरशिप, आई से लीडरशिप इज अबाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग द सेल्फ। मुझे मेरे बारे सोचना चाहिए, समझना चाहिए। स्वाध्याय जो भगवद गीता में स्ट्रेस करते हैं, स्वाध्याय होना चाहिए। वो काफी नहीं है। लीडरशिप इज अबाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग अदर्स, दैट इज, एंड लीडरशिप इज अबाउट द एक्शंस दैट बाइंड द सेल्फ टू द अदर्स। दैट सिचुएट्स द कॉन्टेक्स्ट। In one situation, I may talk to my son as a father. In another situation, I am talking to him as a leadership advisor. दोनों अलग अलग कॉन्टेक्स्ट है, अलग अलग सिचुएशन है। I can't bring a son into the mentee level, or I can't bring the mentee into the son stage. How do I know that? When I go to the balcony, I can recognize that अगर एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट अलग है और मेरा कॉन्टेक्स्ट माइंड में रिलेशनशिप अलग है, उसको ठीक करना चाहिए। सो रिकैलिब्रेट करने के लिए एक मौका मिलता है। रिकैलिब्रेट कैन बी इंस्टेंटेनियस। मैं विक्टर फ्रैंकल के बारे में लिखा हूं, जो वो स्पेस है, उसका स्पेस यूज करके हम कर सकते हैं। दैट इज डिस्क्राइब्ड इन इंडियन स्क्रिप्चर्स। विक्टर फ्रैंकल डिस्क्राइब्स इट एज अ साइकियाट्रिस्ट। So I have tried to bring it in. Going to the balcony, seeing the decision you took, the drama you are playing, and I'm only an artist. Illusory world में एक नाटक खेल रहा हूँ। My makeup is missing, और makeup change करना चाहिए तो change करना चाहिए उस context के लिए। Farm laws का bill में एक problem था। See, Prime Minister sincerely, and I as a policy analyst I'm talking now, not even as an author. I think it's one of the finest policies India brought for agrarian reform. See, people have to analyze it. People talk without data. I can give data and talk. Swaminathan Committee 35 years ago brought in recommendations for the farmers of this country. And every government said, करना चाहिए, करना चाहिए, करना चाहिए. बात करते रहे, लेकिन कर नहीं पाए. Most of it went into the Farm Act, into Parliament, into the Farm Act. It would change agriculture. It would brought in reforms. It would have recognized the farmers' work. It would have led them to market situations which is global and not just local. The control of middlemen and the APMC yards is so suffocating on farmers, they don't understand it. It kills markets. This will open them to the world. If I can sell potato to America, Pepsi, and make more money, the farmer can sell. If he can sell it to the neighborhood yard also, he can sell. उनके लिए पैसा है. Farmers' income should be doubled as Prime Minister's dream. That would have done it. Passionately believed in it, it became law. Now we can go back and say, was it the right way? Could you have done it better? वो अलग है. But when it was withdrawn, there were certain things I can't go on record, but the challenges for India was not just agrarian reform, it was India's sovereignty also. There were deeper problems which people cannot even appreciate the depth of challenges India faced. And decisions had to be taken. It was the country that you're thinking about, not just one economic model. And he had the courage to say, I'm sorry, maybe it was, I didn't understand the anger and the sentiments of people, maybe a small segment of people, but a very visible segment of people. I had to withdraw. When it was brought in Parliament and became law, he didn't celebrate. The saying that, oh, my dream abhi to ho jayega. When it was withdrawn, he didn't feel bad. In one context, I asked him, how do you decide? And I have not written in this book. I'll share an anecdote which is not there in this book. He described this to me. A visiting foreign, not a head of government, but a very senior representative of the government of a foreign country was to meet him. Normally these meetings are very protocolish. The Minister of External Affairs would brief the Prime Minister. the minister would brief, the secretary would brief, and only then him. Even if it's a one-to-one meeting, is well briefed. And our prime minister is extremely knowledgeable about everything. So this man comes and meets him, and the script was ABC, but the prime minister's script was FGX. And that other person is completely bowled out. And then he says, Mr. Prime Minister, I came here thinking I can do this, but what you say is perfect, I have to agree to it, and he left. Prime Minister was laughingly telling me, I got what I wanted, but my teams were unhappy that I didn't go by the script, because it's a very difficult, diplomacy is not easy. And then I asked him, how did you decide? He said, I don't really think too much about it. It comes, that's the power within. It comes from as an insight. I believe when you're plugged into the consciousness, it guides you. And people may laugh at it, but you have to experience it. I asked him, how can you explain it? He said, वो तो मुझे मालूम नहीं, आप तो researcher हैं, research पता करके मुझे बता दीजिए. But then what I believe, and he said something very important. He said, मुझे तो बहुत आसान है. अगर देश के लिए भला होगा, तो मैं तय करता हूँ. If it does good for the country, I decide. At that moment, what I see as good for the country is my guiding compass. I think each of us are challenged by conflicts. In that moment of time with the data that we have, data is always incomplete, inadequate, inconsistent. If you have perfect data, it doesn't need anybody. A machine can decide for you. But if it's not perfect, that's why you need leadership to decide. His yardstick and compass is it good for my country? If it is good, he decides. So I don't think all this narrative of number of seats and all matters. If we can do good for this country, that's all matters.
Sir, a sub question with a very limited perspective. यानी हमारी सोच के लिए हम हमारे लाइफ में डिसीजन लेते हैं, वो आगे लेके चलते हैं और हमें लगता है कि अब ये प्रॉब्लम होने वाला है, ये फेल होने वाला है, लेकिन माइंड नहीं रेडी होता है रिवर्सल के लिए. तो what is your guidance? Forget about national scenario, very limited context.
ये तो बहुत आसान है. कर्मयोग में वही बोलते हैं ना, why are you so attached to the consequences of what you do? हम तो डूअरशिप हमारा कर्तव्य है, वो उसके लिए भी अटैचमेंट नहीं होना चाहिए. डूअरशिप के साथ साथ एंजॉयरशिप भी अटैचमेंट नहीं होना चाहिए. अगर डूअरशिप तो हम करते हैं लेकिन एंजॉयमेंट के बारे में सोचते रहते हैं, तो वी कैन कम बैक बिकॉज यू ऑलरेडी प्लान्ड इट. द प्रॉब्लम इज वी नेवर लिव इन द प्रेजेंट. I can challenge you. So many people sitting in this room listening to me. How many of them are with me in this moment of time? शायद कोई सोच, maybe 10-20%. Some of them are thinking, अरे मुझे तो भूख लग रहा है. वो बोले कि 7:30 बजे से 8:30 बजे खत्म हो जाएगा. 3 मिनट बाकी है, खत्म होगा या नहीं? No, we are already somewhere else. I can tell you, I have witnessed this, and I can stand by this statement. When you are in the presence of the Prime Minister, he is completely in this moment of time. He doesn't think of the past, he doesn't worry about the future. He is in the here and now. I write about the power of now. He is in the here and now. Any meeting he has with anybody, he will remember everything. It is not his memory. It is because he gives 100% to the here and now. It is completely recorded. We don't give her 100%. Try giving 100%, you will also be exactly that. That is the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. It talks about living in the present. भाषण देने के लिए आसान है, किताब में लिखने के लिए आसान है, लेकिन जीने के लिए बहुत मुश्किल है. So I think if you are in that phase, there is no conflict. हर एक डिसीजन एक्सपेरिमेंट होगा, हर एक लीडरशिप एक मजा आ जाएगा लीडरशिप में. So you have fun watching yourself and then recalibrate and re-perform. Problem यह है कि we are so attached to what might have been the outcome of the earlier decision, we are not willing to let go. Letting go is leadership. Try that.
बुक के बाहर का जो बताया हमको एनेक्डोट, तो थैंक यू फॉर दैट. एंड उसमें से मैं और मुकुंद आज सुबह ही बात कर रहे थे कि आपने ये जो बताया कि मोदी जी ने जो वो आगे का सोचा, कुछ अलग सोचा, और उसका जो रीज़न था वो ये था कि ही हैड दैट सेल्फ बिलीफ. अंदर से उनको पता था कि उनको देश के लिए क्या करना चाहिए. और हमें ऐसा भी लगता है कि ही हैज़ रियली सिंप्लीफाइड द कॉम्प्लेक्स थिंग्स and in his mind as well as in his communication. So आपने वो जो मॉडल के बारे में बात किया है, साधारणीकरण, so it looks जिसमें आपने बोला है कि simplification without losing the essence. तो it's like easier said than done for me, looks like. But शब्द में बहुत साधारण और simple ये सब चीज़ें आ रही हैं, but I think it's a very complex thing to achieve. आप क्या कहना चाहोगे? आपने मोदी जी को इतने पास से देखा है, so have you really felt that he has imbibed it completely?
I think so. That's why I've written about it. साधारणीकरण तो आज का चीज नहीं है. बहुत कम लोगों को ये मालूम है. 3000 साल के पहले जब भरत मुनि ने नाट्य शास्त्र में इसके बारे में पहला डिस्क्रिप्शन वहां से आया हुआ है, रसा के बारे में, भाव के बारे में. वो सिर्फ वर्बल कम्युनिकेशन नहीं है, इट्स अ पैकेज डील. पैकेज में भरत लिखते हैं कि सहृदयता होना चाहिए. अगर भाव में एक अलाइनमेंट हो जाएगा. आज का एक न्यूरोबायोलॉजिकल रिसर्च में डॉक्टर रामचंद्रन की किताब में, ही आल्सो इज डूइंग लॉट ऑफ एडवांस रिसर्च, ही टॉक्स ऑफ मिररिंग न्यूरॉन्स. सहृदयता mirrors neurons and the firing of the neurons. I'll give a small example. 2 live examples for each one of you. How many of you saw the photograph of Prime Minister Modi holding Jasprit Bumrah's child in his hands? बहुत सारे लोग देखे होंगे ना. उस समय क्या लगा आपको? उस क्षण में क्या लगा when he was holding the baby? You're seeing that mother, Jasprit's wife, looking at Prime Minister, the mother, and Jasprit Bumrah, the so-called famous cricketer, looking at him. But how is the Prime Minister and his look to the child? Just think about it. And what did you feel in that moment of time? Can you feel love transmitting? Like a grandfather holding a grandchild? That is Sahridayata. The child, it's maybe a few months old. It doesn't have to have a language. How many of you remember the photograph of Prime Minister patting the child gently on the head in Wayanad? A national tragedy. सिर्फ केरला के लिए tragedy नहीं था. हर एक भारतीय आदमी के लिए tragedy है वो. Prime Minister there in a makeshift hospital, the mother is standing beside the bed. He's patting the child on the head. How many of you saw the television scene on that? What did we feel? What did it communicate? If I were to say what I felt, it communicates hope. It communicates conviction that I'll solve this problem for you. Courage, saying that we will do something about this. You are not alone. हम सब लोग आपके साथ हैं. He may not know Malayalam, the child may not know Hindi, but just the Prime Minister's confidence, that is Sahridayata. Sadhanikaran is transmitting that power just through that emotive connection. आजकल तो हम बात करते हैं तो सिर्फ इंफॉर्मेशन ट्रांसफर होता है. इंफॉर्मेशन के साथ इस इंटेंस इमोशन ट्रांसफर नहीं होता है. सिंपल है भरत का. अगर भरतनाट्यम डांस हो रहा है यहाँ, सोचिए कि एक डांस हो रहा है. डांस में आज नवरात्रि अभी तो खत्म हुआ. Let's say that dancer is dancing Kalinga Nartan of Krishna killing that Sarpa, that courage and that angst and the protection he shows. In the face of the dancer, you can feel it. Let's say the dancer is doing Kalika dance and takes the trident to kill the demon. You can see different valor and courage. If you think she's dancing like Radha, looking at, showing love to Krishna, you can also feel the love. That is Bhava, that is Sahridayata. You become one with the dancer. She's not saying anything to you, but your neurons are firing. I think that is the impression Prime Minister can give, and I have seen that very powerful. He can make it so simple that you think it तो आसान है, लेकिन practice करने से लगता है कि इतना आसान नहीं है. बहुत deep consciousness से आना चाहिए. That is the power within I talk about.
Yes, thank you, sir. सर ये मैं experiencing, yeah. Sir, while reading, यहाँ पे बहुत सारे लीडर्स है, एंटरप्रेन्योर्स है जो टीम को लीड करते हैं. ऑनेस्टली मैं जो आपका मैनेजिंग चेंज वाला चैप्टर है, पर्सनली वेरी इम्प्रेस्ड एंड लॉट ऑफ लर्निंग कम्स आउट ऑफ दैट. तो उसको थोड़ा सा एक कॉन्सेप्ट आपने जो एक्सप्लेन किया है, मैं उसमें उसका सवाल कन्वर्ट किया है, सो दैट आई थिंक दैट चेंज मैनेजमेंट लर्निंग विल बी यूजफुल. In that you have explained that the category, the kinds of challenges, you have divided that into technical challenges, technical and adaptive challenges. So if you explain it and bifurcate, I think our day-to-day life of managing change will be easy, and that will be a great learning. But thoroughly impressed with that chapter.
The chapter he is referring to is about Kashmir. हमें ऐसे लगेगा कि कश्मीर का एक विड्रॉल रिपील से हो गया सब कुछ। रिपील एक घटना था, आर्टिकल 370 को रिपील करना सिर्फ एक प्रोसीजरल सॉल्यूशन था, वो सॉल्यूशन नहीं था। कश्मीर के बारे अगर सोचेंगे तो बहुत सारे अटेम्प्ट्स हुआ था सॉल्यूशंस के लिए। हम क्रिकेट टीम भेजेंगे, क्रिकेट टीम को बंद करेंगे, ट्रेड को करेंगे, ट्रेड नहीं करेंगे। दोज आर ऑल टेक्निकल सॉल्यूशंस टू डीप अडैप्टिव प्रॉब्लम। टेक्निकल सॉल्यूशंस प्रॉब्लम्स आर दोज व्हिच आर अ स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड सिंपल सॉल्यूशन। एक एसओपी से सॉल्व कर सकते हैं। बहुत सारे चीज जीवन में ऐसा ही होता है, उसके लिए लीडरशिप नहीं चाहिए, सिर्फ एक टूल किट चाहिए, कर सकते हैं। But the problem is most of us, once the toolkit starts working, we start believing in it so much that for every problem we apply the toolkit and we'll never solve it. As adaptive problems require a deep change of beliefs and convictions, and human beings में change बहुत मुश्किल है। And we people, change management इतना मुश्किल नहीं है। अगर मैं आज साइकिल में चल रहा हूँ और कल सुबह मैं मोटरसाइकिल खरीदूंगा तो वो भी चेंज है, लेकिन बहुत खुशी से मैं खरीदूंगा, ड्राइव करूंगा। इट्स नॉट अ चेंज which is difficult for me. If I'm driving a Maruti 800 and tomorrow I start driving a BMW, that's also change. But I love that change. Change which communicates loss to people is complex, and we can't deal with it. So leadership is about communicating loss to your constituents. How do you communicate the loss of religious identity to this nation was Mahatma Gandhi's challenge. In that point of time, he actually believed, I'm the Mahatma. If I tell people, they'll say, okay, they'll be forgiving and give up land and everything. It didn't work. He paid the price with his life. Well, because it's a very difficult identity to say, let go. Today, if you have to communicate loss to people who got used to all that they had got used to by Article 370, I write about it. 100 families were the ones who are benefiting, not the state of Kashmir. And this is all with facts I quote. And suddenly you have to communicate the loss of that power they had, the loss of wealth they had. You know, how do you can't even, the Reserve Bank of India had no jurisdiction over the local bank, and people could just borrow. Nobody looked at NPAs, nobody looked at who's borrowing, where is the money going, who's doing what. Appointments were made at the discretion of the head of government without any necessity for a job. So everybody was employed. And all those things are not possible in a legal situation at all. But the effort started maybe when we got into RSS, maybe when we became Pracharak. His Ekta Yatra was one incident. He's going and hoisting the national flag. That was, I call it ripening the issue. चेंज मैनेजमेंट के लिए सब लोगों को पर्सपेक्टिव्स के बारे में सोचना चाहिए। बहुत सारे स्टेक होल्डर्स हो सकते हैं, स्टेक होल्डर्स मैपिंग होना चाहिए, उन लोगों को पर्सपेक्टिव्स के बारे में सोचना चाहिए। अगर मैपिंग नहीं होगा तो पर्सपेक्टिव्स नहीं सोचेंगे। That fellow could be the saboteur of your solution in change management. So you want everybody on your side, for which you have to ripen the issue, get people to see your perspective. It takes time. You got to try experiments, and then finally you will be able to succeed. But you got to stay focused on the work at the center, not give up. 30 years Prime Minister Modi was not Prime Minister, but he was staying focused on the work at the center of integrating Kashmir, bringing in development and democracy to that place, making them feel that they wanted India. That was a vision he never let go of. When he got the opportunity to do something about it, incrementally it was done. People didn't believe when he said there will be elections. We had elections. He didn't gain, his party didn't gain, but it happened. So I think you will have to see the entire, how the change has been managed. Today, if I would don't take my word, visit. Just experience that place today when you come. Yes, there will be police presence. Yes, there will be army presence, but there are also Kashmiris living their lives. Tourism also is happening. You can confidently go and come back. So I think it takes a lot of effort to communicate to people the loss that they have to suffer. But that is leadership. And then doing it without marginalizing anybody to the point where they'll sabotage your solution. That is the real beauty of what I have described.
Thank you. We actually felt it very complex to understand, but I think 4 bullet points that you mentioned, I don't know whether I have understood. Yeah. So probably the adaptive is most complex, maybe conviction driven, perspective mapping, objective at center, and most problematic thing to manage is when people are at loss. Taking correct. Sir, moving towards last question, and then if organizers permit, we will take open questions. Sir, the last question is really open. Feel free to guide, but as a citizen of Bharat, we would like to understand. Sir, हर एक को लगता है कि हम डेवलपिंग कंट्री से डेवलप कंट्री होना चाहिए. And not only Modi ji's leadership, you have seen cross section of leadership. It would be our interest to know how do you see in general Indian leadership is managing the transformation.
I would say that I would reframe the question as what is my expectation of the leadership in India to manage it.
Okay.
Because right now we all believe that दिल्ली में कोई बैठकर एक मैजिक वैन को वेव करेगा और भारत विकसित बन जाएगा. It's very easy to talk of Swachh Bharat without I doing anything about Swachhata. So it's all become a fashion statement. It's like, Bangalore में रहने वाले, मैं तो Bangalore से हूँ, तो I can make this joke. I always find it irritating. In Bangalore, everybody complains about traffic. But the fellow is sitting in his car alone, in the car and complaining of traffic. If he leaves his car at home, one problem, some small percentage will be less. So हम भारत में ऐसे ही लोग हैं. भारत के बारे में बोलते रहते हैं, फैशन स्टेटमेंट जैसे कमेंट्स डाल के वी कीप कमेंटिंग, बट देन वी डोंट डू एनीथिंग अबाउट इट. वी एक्सपेक्ट नरेंद्र मोदी टू डू समथिंग. आई हैड पीपल टेल मी, अरे मेरे सिटी में इतना पॉट होल्स है, आपके प्रधानमंत्री क्या कर रहे हैं? क्या वो तार लेकर फिलअप करेंगे क्या? वो कॉर्पोरेटर का प्रॉब्लम है. कॉर्पोरेटर से मांगना चाहिए, वो तो अकाउंटेबिलिटी प्रोसेस है. We have forgotten that we think that everything is solved by somebody out there. I want to just give a personal story. I used to fight a lot of corruption, and अभी तो मैसूर में अभी दसरा खत्म होगा 2 दिन के पहले. हर एक दसरा में हर एक सरकार 10-15 करोड़ रिलीज करते हैं रोड को डालने के लिए, क्योंकि प्रोसेशन को जो रोड है they resurface it. I was tired. One year I saw they don't resurface, they repaint it black. That is my belief. So एक साल मुझे इतना गुस्सा आया, I went and sat in the middle of the road. I took a hammer and screwdriver and I broke open the road, and it was half an inch thick. So I told I will not get up till the corporation commissioner comes and gives me the estimate and blueprint and sab kuch and says how much. If it's only half an inch, I'll get up and go. It was 4-inch sanction. And activists always, the media also comes, they also watch, then the commissioner came, he brought me, he showed me, he said we'll relay it. तो वो तमाशा वो बंद हो गया, मैं घर वापस चला गया. अगला दिन 8 बजे मुझे एक फोन आया. He said Dr. Balasubramaniam कनाडा में. आप डॉक्टर बालसुब्रमण्यम हैं क्या? I said who's calling for me? I said मैं डॉक्टर बालसुब्रमण्यम बात कर रहा हूँ, क्या है? He said अरे आप अभी भी घर में ही हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं? I said अरे मेरे घर में रहने के लिए किसका परमिशन चाहिए मुझे? किसी और के घर में रहूंगा तो my wife has to complain, but I am staying in my house. I said it is my house, क्या हो रहा है? What is this? अभी 8 बज गए, अभी भी घर में बैठे हुए हैं आप? I was thinking, इतना क्रोध था उसमें. I thought शायद कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हैं, थोड़ा आज तो मुझे बहुत मुश्किल होगा. Then he said, I said, why are you asking me? क्यों पूछ रहे हैं? He said, अरे मेरे गली में तार हो रहा है और आप देखने के लिए नहीं आएंगे क्या? I said, मेरा क्या काम है? आपके रोड में तारिंग हो रहा है तो मेरा क्या काम है? कौन पूछेंगे उसको? I said, आपको पूछना चाहिए. क्या? वो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर मारेगा तो मुझे मारना चाहिए क्या? That means that is how Indians think. I told him something. आपका नाश्ता हो गया क्या? He said नहीं. तो मत खाइए, मेरा तो नाश्ता हो गया. That's why I don't understand the joke also. So हम हमारा देश में ऐसे ही सोचते हैं, किसी और विकसित भारत बनेगा, गर्व तो किसी और में आएगा तो मुझे काफी है, वो नहीं चलेगा. प्राइम मिनिस्टर सेज मैंने ये हम. He says नव भारत निर्माण के लिए टीम इंडिया के लिए, न्यू इंडिया के लिए टीम इंडिया चाहिए. सरकार समाज बाजार यूनाइटेडली काम करना चाहिए, तब नव भारत निकलेगा. सरकार से नहीं होगा या कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर से नहीं होगा, एंटरप्रेन्योर से नहीं होगा, सब मिलकर काम करने से होगा. ईच ऑफ अस शुड थिंक विदाउट मी नव भारत नहीं होगा, एंड बिलीव इन इट, पैशनेटली लीड इट. वी ओनली हैव 100 प्रॉब्लम्स टू से. अरे सब बोलते रहते हैं, भाषण देते रहते हैं, तो इतना मुश्किल है, वो तो रिश्वत मांग रहा है, यहाँ तो पुलिस करप्ट है, वो तो ठीक नहीं है. वी ओनली सी प्रॉब्लम्स, but can we see ourselves as change makers pushing solutions in the little world that we operate? What little we can do? For somebody it will be picking the paper, throwing it in a dustbin. वो भी भारत के लिए सेवा है. For somebody else it will be Sevankur. For somebody else it will be a hospital like this. For somebody it can be a small school. Somebody it will be one man going to a slum and teaching a small child on his own quietly. अलग अलग तरह के हो सकता है, लेकिन हर एक आदमी, हर एक भारत का प्रजा सोचना चाहिए कि ये मेरे सिवा नहीं होगा, मेरा कंट्रीब्यूशन से ही बदलना है भारत का. अगर मैं नहीं कंट्रीब्यूट करूंगा तो चेंज नहीं हो सकता है. इफ ही बिलीव्स दैट 2047 नहीं 2035 के अंदर विकसित भारत बन जाएगा.
किती वेळ चालेल?
We can take 15 more minutes and we can take few questions from audience. Yeah. Are we okay? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Patankar Vikrant.
Ask questions about leadership in the book. Yes, I will not answer any.
Sir, I'm a practicing psychiatrist. I'm Dr. Patankar. My question is, do leaders have side effects of success? And if yes, what do you feel Mr. Prime Minister did manage it and how? Thank you.
मैं फिर ये बात करूंगा कि लीडर्स नहीं बन सकते. लीडर्स आर नाउन. आई डोंट बिलीव इन इट. आई ओनली बिलीव इन द वर्ब फॉर्म, एक्सरसाइजिंग लीडरशिप. But when we exercise leadership, sometimes we think I'm the only one who can do it. Many times for people exercising leadership, including it has happened in my life. When I started doing this work, I was completely dissociated from my identity. But the former Chief Minister of Karnataka wrote my biography. I thought, wow, I must be doing something. After some time I realized doing something was not important. I must be doing something became more important. So the work as the center shifted to I must be seen to be at the center all the time. It is not about fighting corruption for India. I should be seen to be fighting corruption. Delhi mein ho raha hai na, hua tha. So I think most leaders fall into the trap of thinking that I am doing it. That is the biggest challenge for leadership. And that is what happens to people who enjoy authority in positions. You can't let it go. I think I'm not doing it. It's getting done through me. Is the greatest thing I have watched. There's a very personal anecdote today I heard. Without using the name, I'll share it. Somebody asked Prime Minister Modi when he was Chief Minister, you're doing so much good, but people keep criticizing you. How are you managing? I learned the anecdote only today. Others had brought it in my book. He said, बहुत आसान है. जब मैं नहाने के लिए जाता हूँ तो रेनकोट पहन के जाता हूँ. So I don't get wet. I remembered what Paramahamsa said. If you're living in this world, live like a lotus leaf. You have to be in the water. संसार में रहना ही चाहिए. ये सब normal है. He said, be like the lotus leaf in the water. You are in the water, but don't get wet by it. I think leadership is that. And I have seen Prime Minister Modi being like that. And that's a great lesson for me.
एंडला आहे, सगळ्यात शेवटी आहे कोणीतरी. माईक असेल का अजून एखादा? म्हणजे मागे एकाला उभं करूया आणि एकाला समोर उभं करूया.
शायद माइक ऑन नहीं है.
Voice.
I am Sanjeev Sahuji. My question is a curiosity. Modi is a very gifted person. He has tremendous powers to judge, to manage, to communicate. Then what made him miss the challenge of changing constitution, withdrawing the reservations? Why he could not get alerted with that easily?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that because that is not the context in which I have seen him. So it may be wrong for me to give an answer without, I can't speak on his behalf. But I don't think it was ever in the narrative to change the constitution or to remove reservation. It was a narrative fashioned and created and sold well. आजकल तो एडवर्टाइजमेंट तो बहुत सारे बिकता है ना. मैं एक सुबह एक ट्विटर में देख रहा था, टैंग इज 93% शुगर. but it is sold as a health drink. And most parents say, I will not give my child Coke and Pepsi, which has got less sugar, but they'll give Tang. So that's the world of advertisements. So if you package something so well, it can get believed by people, and it's about the people who are believing it. So I don't know about how we saw it. I didn't talk to my book was already over by that time, so I had no opportunity to discuss this. So it will be wrong on me to speak about it. But I feel that policy making is always political. And every Indian is political. That's a reality. Whether we may all nicely wish it away, but we all have our own politics. And that is the complexity of winning elections in India. It is not binary, it is not linear, it is not predictable. And that's the beauty of India's democracy. And so I leave it there. I think there are many hands, so.
Hello, I am Ravindra Bodke. I need to know about power within and who is in. It is somewhat, what is the difference between it?
It's a great question. I didn't explain why the title even. एक बहुत पॉपुलर पब्लिक लीडरशिप के बारे में एक बुक है, उनका ऑथर है आर्ची ब्राउन. The book's title is The Myth of a Strong Leader. And I read it in the past many times. For my research, I read it again. मुझे ऐसे लग रहा था मुझे it was not gelling with me because I have understood, and I am also supposed to be a leadership expert and do a lot of analysis, and I believe Mahatma Gandhi was a very powerful leader. I believe Sardar Patel was a powerful leader, as much as maybe Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in her peak must have been a great powerful leader. Prime Minister Modi is one. There are a lot of powerful personalities like Aurobindo, Vivekananda and all these people, and I could not reconcile. जो आर्ची ब्राउन लिखे थे, I analyzed 5 leaders, one from Russian, all other 4 from Western constructs. Then I realized the metric of measuring leadership was wrong. He was measuring leadership as my ability to control all of you. If I can control a country, I have great power over all of you. So the expression is power without. Expression of my ahankar over you is control. Whereas in India, Kautilya writes in Arthashastra so beautifully. He says, the only responsibility of a ruler, you can consider as a head of a company, head of a country, head of an organization, जो भी सोच सकते हो, लेकिन वो उस जगह में जो बैठते हैं, 2 ही responsibilities है उनका, लोक संग्रह और योगक्षेमा, welfare of everybody without any exception, and protecting the securities that you generate and enabling you to generate more securities. It could be physical security, emotional security, सब कुछ. इसके लिए he says it's not possible if the ruler is not an इंद्रिय विजयी. And इंद्रिय विजयी के लिए इंद्रिय निग्रह चाहिए. Western world sees expression of ego and control. India sees expression of control over the ego within. That is the power within I talk about.
Namaste sir, I am Dr. Sridhan Patil. As you said, in India it is more about exercising leadership instead of being a leader. And even in our Vedic civilization, it was always about a prized king rather than a leader. But why does it seem so that in Western countries, more in India, leaders are worshipped more than the Western countries? Is it true?
It's not true. Every country does it. Every country has got its nonsense. And I can say this because I've been an advisor to a country. I've been traveling around. I teach. I've taught a lot in the United States. I've run workshops around the world. It's a common problem because people confuse positions of authority to leadership. वही problem है. Authority comes from authorizing somebody. अगर CEO है company का, when there's a problem in the company, we run to the CEO and say, "अरे CEO साहब solve कर दीजिए." And the CEO enjoys solving because he's seduced into believing he's great. And without solving, he has no identity. अगर problem solve करने के बाद ही उसका identity मिलेगा. And ordinary लोग जो काम करते हैं उस कंपनी में, वो बोलेंगे कि अरे वेतन तो मुझसे भी 10 गुना लेते हैं, तो उसका ये प्रॉब्लम है, करना चाहिए. But leadership is empowering. It's about giving work back to people where it rightfully belongs. It is about not taking ownership over somebody else's work and neither the credit. वो leadership है, वो अलग ही चीज है. So I think it is a problem in every country. Very few people can understand it. We have lost a civilizational thinking. जो वैदिक स्टेज के बारे में बोल रहे हो वो वैदिक है, पर तो पिछले 300 साल से we have lost a lot. What I am trying to do is remind people, this is what our shastras say, this is what our literature says. The most powerful statement of the Vedas is Atmano Mokshartam Jagat Hitayacha. India is the only country which says my personal evolution can only be Jagat Hita. No other countries, every other country says मेरा हित के लिए ही काम करना चाहिए. लेकिन हमारा देश में मेरा मोक्ष होना चाहिए, वो स्वार्थ है, मेरा मोक्ष भी स्वार्थ है, लेकिन सिर्फ मेरे मोक्ष के लिए नहीं, जगत के हित के साथ मेरा मोक्ष होना चाहिए. That is the beauty of leadership of India. All I have done is remind all of you, please look at what is the wealth we have. Don't take my word for it. You can do your own research. But if you agree to what I say, try to live it. We'll build a great Bharat.
I think we will take only 2 questions.
माइक के सामने आ जाइए, वो स्पीकर के सामने आ जाइए.
Last 2 questions. The food is waiting for.
मेरा नाम रितेश अग्रवाल है. भारतीय समाज में हम देखते हैं कि जैसा व्यक्तिगत नेतृत्व को हम बहुत ज्यादा महत्व देते हैं. जैसे सनातन धर्म के अंदर हम पहले भी देखेंगे कि कोई तारणहार आएगा, अवतार आएगा, या फिर पर्टिकुलर एक पर्सन जो बड़ा नेतृत्व को लीड करेगा और हम सबके दुख कम करेगा, जो भी ट्रबल में हम लोग है. तो जैसा आज हम नरेंद्र मोदी जो है, जैसा भी इन्होंने पीछे एक पर्सन ने कहा था कि ये इज अ गिफ्टेड पर्सन, तो नरेंद्र मोदी गिफ्टेड पर्सन ऐसा आज हम सबको लगता है. पर उसके बाद क्या ये जो मानसिकता है ये कैसे बदलेगी, जिस वजह से हम लोग आज एक पर्टिकुलर इंडिविजुअल पे डिपेंडेड है कि इसी ने ही कुछ बहुत बड़ा बदलाव लाना चाहिए जिससे हम लोगों का कुछ भला हो जाए. दिस इज माय
आई हैव टू डिसएग्रीमेंट विथ यू. पहला डिसएग्रीमेंट है कि भारत की संस्कृति में ऐसा सोच है कि कोई आएगा करेगा, वो झूठ है. भारत की संस्कृति में ये सच है कि हमारा अंदर के अंदर एक दिव्यता है, वो दिव्य शक्ति को प्रकट करेंगे तो वो आ जाएगा. नरेंद्र मोदी प्रॉब्लम नहीं सॉल्व करेंगे. मैं मेरे बुक पढ़ने के बाद आपके अंदर जो नरेंद्र मोदी है उस जागृत होना चाहिए. आप क्या कर सकते हैं उसके बारे में पूछिए. That is all you need to do. Let's not worry about the world. Let's not worry about India. Let's worry about the power within you, which is useless. Wake it up, make it alive, and then the world will be a better place.
Sir, I am Raghunandan Lahoti. I take this opportunity to say that I feel blessed to have such a Prime Minister, and I thank you for writing this book with a different perspective and a great purpose. My question is, please throw some light on Prime Minister's visit to Himalaya and its impact on making the Modi.
When I did this research of his life, I started from his 17th year. 17 to 19 is when he went around the country. And I found a lot of facts. So I went to him and I asked him, if I have to describe what you are today, that is driven by the journey and the experiences you had. लोग ये नहीं समझना चाहिए कि बुक पढ़ने के बाद मोदी जैसे बन सकते हैं. वो प्रिपरेशन जो था उसके बारे में हमें थोड़ा, वो तो बहुत साधना है. So the Prime Minister told me, as an author you have your space, but as a protagonist, 2 साल मेरे लिए बहुत प्राइवेट है. और मेरा साधना के बारे में वो प्राइवेट है, उसके बारे में कुछ नहीं लिखना. So I only written about how we went to Ramakrishna Ashram and he traveled around the Himalayas in India. So I think it is his personal journey and we should leave it at that. And I respected it as author.
Sir, I am Dr. Patwadkar.
Yes, yeah.
I love Narendra Modi. I am inspired by Narendra Modi. But still, I can't explain that all the time he is talking about Modi, Modi and Modi. How do you explain it?
There is a clarity I want to bring in. Many of us do not know how to separate role from self. हर एक आदमी में एक रोल होता है. Just imagine yourself when a patient comes to you and he says, इसको करना चाहिए क्या डॉक्टर? He says, मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना, करना चाहिए. How many times you must have told your patient that? You don't say, "To aapke," we don't, because that comes very spontaneously. Not that we mean it anything in egoistic way, but in a vyavaharik way, you are playing the role of a doctor whom he respects and waits for counsel and guidance, and you have to project that way. It's not that you are taking away his individuality and saying, "मैं बोल रहा हूँ करना चाहिए." You're not dictatorial. But वो उस धर्म में जो करना चाहिए वो करना चाहिए. Krishna is a great, perfect example of leadership. He plays several roles in the Mahabharata. He also plays the role of God. In the same Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna Vishada Yoga is possibly the best part of the Bhagavad Gita to me. Because Bhagavad Gita is not because of Krishna. That's a mistake. He never says it's because of Krishna. Actually, Bhagavad Gita is a collaborative expression. Because of the Vishada of Arjuna only we have the Bhagavad Gita today. A very strong, powerful leader suddenly becomes vulnerable and useless and gets doubt because he's confused about his roles. Is the role of a Kshatriya important? The role of his understanding of dharma, not killing people, or role of loving my cousins, or role of fighting for my kingdom? He was confused. Leadership is about providing role clarity. Leadership is about differentiating role from self. And Krishna was very clear. Till he brought him to the battlefield was Arjuna, Sarathi. Playing role था सारथी का. जब विषादा आ गया, कृष्णा को यह मालूम पड़ा कि सारथी के रोल से नहीं होगा, अभी तो मेंटर का रोल होना चाहिए. He explains it as a mentor. Suddenly at one point of time he says, भगवान का दर्शन उनको देना चाहिए. He gives him the Vishwa Roop Darshan. By the end of the last chapter, Krishna becomes very normal and says, अभी तो war के लिए जाना पड़ेगा ना. Look at the climax, so beautiful. He said, मैं तो जो मालूम था बोल दिया, लेकिन सुनना या उसको करना आपका मर्जी. It's your choice. You have heard the 700 slokas, 18 chapters, khatam ho gaya, but you want to experiment and live it. That means it's personalizing the leadership sadhana. So in Prime Minister's case, what is my observation? You don't have to agree with me. He has a role as a politician. He has a role as a statesman. He has a role as a party man. He has a role as a Prime Minister of a country. My book of analysis of him is Prime Minister Modi. I have not even attempted to go into anything else. If I had, I would have given a very, I talk only with evidence. As a Prime Minister is what I've used his leadership. Because I have seen it, I have done research on his life as a Pracharak, as a Chief Minister, as Organizing Secretary of BJP, and as a Prime Minister. Most of the quotations are as Prime Minister. To see patterns, because expressions have to evolve. You are what you are today over a period of evolution, various experiences. Until I understand that, I can't write about it. That is why I have to do 50 years of his life's research. And seeing patterns and expressions which are very static in a dynamic ecosystem, I try to capture and present it in the Indic way. So I think he is very good at playing roles. He doesn't get confused. देखने वालों के लिए, सुनने वालों के लिए confusion है. And that is real because many of us get confused. It's appropriate also. Many times people, in one of the interviews, one of the famous interviewers, if you watch it, you'll know, she said, why is Modi silent on many issues? I've actually written in my book of the power of Vak. When were rishis speaking? When were very senior learned people in India spoke? What does the power of speech mean? And we don't give him that space. Every small problem in the country, somebody says Modi should answer, we expect he'll call a press conference and answer. We all have this expectation. That's not wrong. It's an expectation. But should he perform to your expectation or should he perform to his role? I think I've analyzed him performing to his role and I think it's top class.
Yeah, this will be the last question. He will be with us while we have food. So we can interact, I guess.
धन्यवाद. मेरा नाम चेतन जोशी है. लीडरशिप के बारे में मेरा एक पर्सनल ऑब्जर्वेशन ऐसा है कि जैसा आपने कहा सनातन में एवरीबडी वाज बॉर्न लीडर. सनातन में ओके बट एवरीबडी इज अ लीडर इन हिज ओन लाइफ.
No, I never said that also. You are saying that. I am very careful.
Okay, that's my perspective.
My view is very clear. You don't know who you are when you are born. The world is a gymnasium which gives you opportunities to express leadership.
Yeah,
some of us do, some of us don't.
Right.
And by expressing in that the sadhana, as you get better and better and better, you get better and better. Chayad moksha ho sakta hai, nahi to nahi ho sakta hai. But my clarity is clear. The Maya prevents you from recognizing the power within you.
Right.
Expressing it is sadhana.
तो मेरा कहना ये है कि भाई ड्यूरिंग दिस इंडिपेंडेंस डेज जब ब्रिटिश हमारे पास रूल कर रहे थे तो महात्मा गांधी ने बोला था ब्रेक द रूल्स. तो जो आदमी जितना बड़ा ब्रेक करता है रूल इतना बड़ा लीडर बन गया और वो आज भी इंडिया में वैसा ही चालू है. ये मेरा ऑब्जर्वेशन है कि जो लॉ जितना ब्रेक कर सकता है वो जो ज्यादा बड़ा लीडर बनता है लोग उससे डरते हैं. जो रियल फैक्ट है यहाँ पे अभी दिख रहा है वैसा. हम और आप जो है एकदम नॉर्मल है, कायदे से डरते हैं, कायदे से चलते हैं, कुछ भी हुआ तो हम डरते हैं. लेकिन मेरा ऐसा मानना है जैसा आपने कहा कि ये बुक से 1000 लीडर पैदा होना चाहिए. अगर भारत को कुछ नया बनना है या फिर डेवलप कंट्री बनना है तो मुझे एक सिंपल मेरा फंडा है कि ईच एंड एवरीबडी हैज टू डू हिज ओन ड्यूटीज रेगुलरली. जो भी लॉज है, मैं गाड़ी भी चला रहा हूं तो गाड़ी चलाते समय रूल्स फॉलो करना चाहिए. अगर ऐसा नहीं होता है तो ऐसे 200 साल भी गए, 100 मोदी भी आए तो हम डेवलप कंट्री नहीं बन सकते हैं. जस्ट द थिंग इज दैट ये जो ब्रेक होना चाहिए कि भाई जो लॉ ब्रेक करता है वो ज्यादा बड़ा लीडर है, वो महात्मा गांधी से बन गया है अनफॉर्चुनेटली. एक्चुअली ये बंद होना चाहिए था कि ये अभी मेरा देश है, ये मेरा तो जो है गवर्नमेंट मेरा है और ये जितने मैं रूल्स फॉलो करूंगा इतना बड़ा कंट्री मेरा बनेगा. ये हमें सोच सबके लोगों में बिठाना है. बाकी मेरे हिसाब से तभी, हाँ इसको बोले 5 साल लगे, 10 साल लगे या 2 दिन में भी हो सकता है. लेकिन जब तक ये सोच नहीं होती है तब तक हम definitely we are not going to be a developed country.
Anyway, there's no question for me to answer, so I appreciate your comment. Yeah.
Sir, last question, please. Please consider. Yeah.
Hi. And first of all, thanks a lot for all the interesting questions from the panel and from the audience and the answers that you've been giving. So I'm Ajinkya Bhalchandra and my mom Anjali Bhalchandra. So we both have been discussing this point wherein the topic of power within. There are also a couple of people who do not have like a positive power within, but a negative power at times, and even they grow. So you must have come across such people, and how do you, let's say, manage such people, or even how do you face them in a way?
There is no power within. If you have power within, you will never manifest it wrong. Power is expressed in 4 different ways in society. The classical way, what he was sharing, is power without, power over somebody to do something. Breaking a law is power over the laws, and he is breaking it. So most people appreciate power over. There are 4 kinds of power. Let me give an example. My self-help group women, I'm talking 40 years ago, my tribal women, when I formed them into self-help groups, I spoke about how they should all open bank accounts. Today we have JAM and we have inclusive banking and all that. उस दिन तो कुछ नहीं था. 5 किलोमीटर पैदल जाना था लोकल ग्रामीण बैंक के लिए, and you have to get इतने बड़ा ledgers थे. You may not even know all that. They would attach pages inside after writing your account number and write your credit debit. So after my bhashan, I said we all women should come together. We should form a self-help group. Bhashan to ho gaya. Next morning, one tribal woman Sally went to the bank. She told the manager, "You have to open a bank account for me." He said, "अरे आप तो गरीब हैं, बैंक अकाउंट क्या क्यों चाहिए आपके लिए? आपके लिए 2 रुपया एक हफ्ते में सेविंग्स के लिए बैंक अकाउंट मैं तो लेजर नहीं ओपन कर सकता हूँ, नहीं चाहिए." He sent her off. She was humiliated and she came back. Next week I went to the meeting. She was upset with me. She said, "You simply talk all this." वो मैनेजर मुझे मना कर दिया अकाउंट ओपन करने के लिए. The problem was bank manager had power over the tribal woman and therefore he did not open the account. The next week I told, "Why did you go alone? आप 15 लोग साथ में जाना था." 15 women went. What do you think the bank manager did?
You opened.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean they basically overpowered.
You opened the bank account because that was power with each other. Individually मुझे power नहीं था बाहर expression के लिए. Now I have power with all of us over the bank manager. They reversed it and that's why you opened the bank account. Most politicians don't have power within. They only have power over others to do whatever they want. The to do is maybe breaking a rule, to do is maybe making money, to do is making do what they want. Power within also gets expression of power over situations or other things to do good for society. So I have another definition of leadership. I say leadership is an activity. That's why I say there's no leaders. It's always an activity. Leadership is an activity of mobilizing yourself. It starts from that. And those around you and their resources. Resources can be all kinds. To do something societally constructive amidst enormous uncertainty. If you're not thinking of the future, you're not worried about the uncertainty. So if you're worried about agar main fail ho jaunga, then you'll never do anything. So it's about mobilizing yourself and others around you, that is with, to do something societally constructive, not personally constructive. And you're not sure, you may never win, you may never succeed. Gandhi could have never got his freedom, I don't know, but he still believed in it and did it. That is leadership. So I think that is the power within I'm speaking about. A man who understands power within will never abuse it. If he's you abusing it, it's not power within. It's just power over somebody else.
Understood. Thank you.
I know we all could keep listening this enriching conversation, but we should stop somewhere. Now I would like to call Dr. Prashant Gaikwad to deliver vote of thanks. Dr. Prashant is an anesthetist in Dr. Hedgewar Rugnalaya. He holds the responsibility as a trustee of Dr. BAP, Dr. Balasubramaniam Vaidyakiya Pratishthan. Also he is a trustee of Dr. Ambedkar Foundation, New Delhi, comes under Ministry of Social Justice and Welfare, and also he is Upakram Pramukh of Sevankur, Bharat.
माननीय आर बालसुब्रमण्यम जी जो सेवांकुर के हमारे मार्गदर्शक है, उन्होंने हमारे लिए एक दिन का समय यहाँ पे निकाला और यहाँ पर आके पूरा पावर पैक्ट उनका ये दिन था वो हमें दिया, इसके लिए मैं उनका आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। माननीय मुकुंद जी और मेधा देशपांडे जी जिन्होंने इस सेशन को कंडक्ट किया, उनके भी मैं आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। ऑल डिग्निटरी जो यहाँ पे आए हैं, किसी न किसी ने फोन किया है, निमंत्रण दिया है, सभी आप लोग यहाँ पर आए, तो सेवांकुर भारत की ओर से मैं आप सबका अब आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। आप सबको बुलाने में जिन हितचिंतकों ने हमारी मदद की है सेवांकुर भारत की, ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग भी यहाँ पे मौजूद हैं, मैं उन सबका आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। इस हॉल की उपलब्धता और बाकी अन्य व्यवस्थाओं के लिए डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर वैद्यकीय प्रतिष्ठान, हेडगेवार रुग्णालय और श्री रामचंद्र इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मेडिकल साइंसेस, इन सबका मैं आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
Just to mention, we have placed few copies of the book outside this hall. Also, there is a QR code. Few QR codes are there, which you can scan the QR code and online the book from your app.
Amazon, I think, is offering something.
Yeah, Amazon is offering some discount due to this festival season. So you can, yeah, 33% it is. So you can get it from there as well. We also have arranged a meal which is on the 5th floor, and I would like you to enjoy the dinner. Now let's conclude the session with Kalyan Mantra. I would like to call Mr. Maithili Niturkar. She is a second year MBBS student at Government Medical College, Sambhajinagar. Yeah, Maithili.
मैं आप सबसे निवेदन करना चाहती हूँ कि आप अपने हाथ जोड़ लीजिए और आंखें बंद करके मेरी बात मंत्र दोहराइएगा। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मां कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। धन्यवाद।